Prepare yourself for the terror. The prison of madness, where few enter and none return.
Welcome to Unsung Horrors. With Lance. And Erica.
Leave all your sanity behind. It can't help you now.
Welcome to another episode of Unsung Horrors. I'm Erica.
I'm Lance.
And this is our special bonus episode recapping the movies that we watched for this year's Horror Gives Back Challenge. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the challenge, each October we put a list together of categories for each day of the month. And the idea is that participants, or even if you're following our list or not, will donate money to a charity based on how many horror movies you watched, or you can just kick in if you want, because I saw some people who weren't necessarily participating in the challenge, but still kicked in some donations, which was great.
Yeah.
Our charity this year was Best Friends Animal Society. So we had set a goal of $666 this year.
Yes, Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. And we more than doubled that this year, thanks to everyone's contributions.
Blown away.
Yeah. So with everyone's contributions, it was just over $1,300. And then there were some employee matches. So that brought us up to a total of $1,431.
Damn, I can't believe it.
That's amazing. It's more than we did last year. I was hoping we'd exceed that, and I'm really glad that we did. So thanks so much to everyone who participated, whether you were sharing or just kicked in. We do want to obviously shout out those people who did make some donations.
Yes. All these people are very awesome. I mean, even if you just shared on social medias to spread the word, to get more people aware. I mean, everybody's awesome that's involved, but we do want to shout out the Horror Gives Back donors. Mike Esparza, I love you, Mike.
Hi,
the
Mike.
Wonder Bros. He's an amazing artist. He does great pet portraits too, as well. Check him out on Instagram.
I've commissioned a few from him.
Yeah, he's just fantastic. I think he goes by Wonder Bros Mike on his socials. Lisa from Bad Movie Bunnies.
Sharing everyday picks.
Yes.
Love you, Lisa. Thank you.
Loved following, loved liking what you were picking. We had a few of the same movies. Jay Campbell, Robert Predham, of course.
Thanks, Robert.
Matt Clark. Thank you so much, Matt. Dustin Dunaway.
From Genre Exposure. Thanks, Dustin.
Yes. Had a fun time talking to you with our Blu-ray wish list episode.
Yes.
Nate from I Hope You Suffer.
Thanks, Nate.
Yes. Adam Hersey. So thank you so much, Adam, for your generous donation. You set your Horror Gives Back list on Letterboxd pretty early, well before October started. Saw great picks that you had. I liked your list. You really committed to your donation.
Yes.
So I really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
We both do so much.
Thanks so much.
Kelly Krantz. And then we have Ian from Rock Shock Pop. Thank you, Ian. Austin Green, Micah Lindsay, Henry Davies, and Majesta Smith.
Yay.
Yes. Thank you to everybody so much. I mean, $1,431.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's crazy. And you guys made it happen. So I don't know. It felt really good waking up, November 1st and looking at that total.
Yeah, it did. So thank you again to everybody. And we'll be doing it again next year. So hopefully you guys can get some more of your friends to participate, raise some more money for charity.
Yes.
It's our favorite thing to do.
It is. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
It's not to talk about movies. It's just to get to Horror Gives Back.
Yeah, actually, this is the end of the episode. So if you're not already, you can... No, I'm just kidding. All right, so we're going to get into our picks for this, and we will have links to both of our Letterboxd lists for all these movies. So, you don't have to write any of them down. You can just click on show notes and find both of our lists on Letterboxd of all of our movies. We have 31 categories to get through. That means 62 movies, but actually less because we got a couple of duplicates that you and I picked the same.
And just to let you guys know, I have very little notes on some of them. I'm going to fly through a lot of them. Some I'll probably talk a little bit longer, but get your sleeping bag ready because it could be like a while to get to the viewer's choice.
I mean, yeah, it's worth it.
It's totally worth it.
It's going to be a fun journey.
It is. It always is.
So let's kick it off then. Day one, Amicus. Lance, what was your pick?
Okay, so I started off with The Monster Club, which I had never watched before. These are all first-time watches,
Same
I think,
for
for both of us.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were actually doing that, which is always fun. Yeah, so I did The Monster Club, 1981, it's a horror anthology directed by Amicus and Hammer pro Roy Ward Baker, who did Asylum, Bolt of Horror, all the good stuff. It stars Vincent Price, John Carradine, Donald Pleasance, also has Britt Eklund in it, Patrick McGee's in a segment. The wraparound story was a lot of fun because it involves Vincent Price. He plays a vampire, and John Carradine plays a horror author, and Vincent Price is like trying to bite him, and he's like, very apologetic when he finds out who he is. Like, I've read your stories. So he takes him to this club, this monster club, and he tells him these 3 stories to talk about some of the creatures and the people that kind of frequent the club. Yeah. So the first segment, it's very obviously this is a horror comedy. You know, if you look at the poster, if you don't know anything about it and look at the poster, you could probably just get that from that. But it has the very polite British humor that we're kind of used to. The first segment does involve like this hermit he hires this woman to categorize like all his artifacts. And that one has like the creepiest ending. Like it's really effective as far as creep factor goes. The second one was probably my favorite with Britt Eklund in it. Donald Pleasance plays a vampire hunter, which he's really great in it. No spoilers.
Is he Van Helsing?
He's not Van Helsing.
Is he Van Pleasance?
He should be. That would have been perfect.
See, I should write these things. Come on, people.
Should. The third segment was like my least favorite. That's the one with Patrick McGee in there. None of them are really weak. I mean, it's a fun little horror anthology. Like I said, it has the very, familiar British formula, polite characters, a lot of bad acts. The music plays a key role in all of these segments, which it helps you like identify clues because there's a lot of musical cues that, like, okay, focus in on these scenes and stuff. A lot of close-ups indicating that there's a secret that isn't revealed in the very last minute, which I think is kind of key to making horror anthologies work. You just kind of sit and wait and a big reveal is going to happen. Each of these segments have that, so it does work really well. Yeah, there's a costume party in it. I mean, there's original songs.
Oh, jeez.
There's bands playing at the costume party original. I mean,
you're ticking all the Lance boxes now.
It is. It really did. And it was a great way to start off the month. So fun. Check it out. It's on Tubi. It's also on Shudder. It was added to Shudder. So nice. Yeah, The Monster Club.
Yeah.
What was yours?
So I think you probably did this too. Mine are out of order as far as like when I watched them. Like I wasn't like day 1, Amicus, day 2, so on and so forth. So some of these I watched like a big chunk at the very beginning of the month, and then I didn't watch any for a few days. And so I'm going to be pretty hazy on some of them.
Oh, yeah, same.
But I did for Amicus From Beyond the Grave, 1974, directed by Kevin Connor. I had the Blu-ray for this sitting on my shelf, so finally got to open that up. So the wraparound story has Peter Cushing, and he runs an antique store. It's got a little bit of a like Needful Things vibe. The first segment is the best one. It's got this like little shop of horrors mirror where, you need to feed the mirror blood. The second one has Donald Pleasance and his daughter in it. And that one's fun. And then the third one is a man with like this elemental demon. Or the last one is like has a door in an office to this house this couple moves into, and it's like the sort of passageway to a warlock's room. I like the wraparound story the most because like Peter Cushing, Oh yeah. The first segment is definitely the best, but Peter Cushing is just anytime he's on, I'm just paying more attention by nature. So I liked it though. I think Amicus has so many good anthologies. They're just sort of like comfort movies for October. So I agree. It's a great way to kind of kick off the month. Then getting into sequels, I did Curse 2, The Bite from 1989, directed by Federico Prosperi. So I'd seen the original Curse years ago, which I'm lukewarm about. But I was excited to watch this because it has an Italian director. It was co-produced by Ovidio Assanitis, has effects by Screaming Mad George. So I went in with pretty high expectations. And for the most part, they were met. So it's about 2 young people traveling through part of New Mexico where the government has been testing, and that's resulted in snakes becoming radioactive. The man in the couple gets bit and Eventually, his arm turns into a snake. Unfortunately, too much of the movie spends time focusing on the traveling salesman who's trying to track them down because he doesn't want to get sued for giving the guy the wrong snake antivenom. So a lot of the kills are close up or off screen, so you can't really see too much. But the last 10 minutes is really where like the effects budget went. I think there was like one missed opportunity here. There should have been at least one sock puppet gag, but I mean, he's got a snake for an arm. How can you not?
Right.
You know? But I enjoyed it. I watched this one on YouTube, and I'd have to revisit the original, but I think I probably like this one more than the first one.
Yeah, I feel like I've watched the first one. That's with Will Wheaton, right?
Yeah, Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember it at all. So I don't know. Maybe I just remember seeing the box.
What about you? Sequel.
Okay, so I knew going in beforehand that this was going to be a disaster. But last year, I watched Warlock: The Armageddon for my sequel pick.
Oh, God.
So I figured, you know what? I got to close these Warlock movies out. Warlock 3, The End of Innocence.
Wait, is Julian Sands even in this one?
No.
Oh, fuck this.
I know. So
right.
Part 2 I enjoyed. Julian Sands was back as the Warlock. You know, he did what he does best. This sequel from 1999, Julian Sands is replaced by Bruce Payne. And he doesn't do a very bad job, really. But he doesn't show up till like 40 minutes into the movie.
No.
Yeah, there's like a few flashback scenes and stuff here and there until he's introduced. I mean, he doesn't really become like a part of the movie until he's introduced 40 minutes in.
Okay.
It does star Ashley Lawrence from, Hellraiser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the worst. I mean, you wouldn't like it because it is definitely the worst of the 90s. When you think of like 90s horror, this could be like the worst of 90s horror.
Okay, yeah.
You know, the music, the wardrobe. It has terrible CGI, but there's one good practical effect where it's this nice throat rip.
Okay.
Looks great. Some of the makeup looks okay. Yeah, I don't even remember what it was about. I remember Ashley Lawrence's character. She inherits this house that I think once belonged to the Warlock.
Okay.
And like her friends show up to help her like clean it or sell it. And I don't even know what like the end goal was, but he just kind of shows up and just starts hanging out with the friends.
All right.
It sounds kind of interesting, but it's terrible.
It really doesn't, actually.
I watched it with subtitles though, and there was one funny thing that was that popped up. So whenever screaming was happening on, like from the kids in the house or flashback scenes, the subtitle was "Unholy Shrieking."
That's a good title for a movie.
Yeah, it is. I wonder if there's one out there.
Maybe.
Or just a song, like a fucking 15-minute prog song.
There you go.
So yeah, Warlock 3, I think I watched it on Tubi. I don't even remember that. I wouldn't recommend it, but I did want to complete my Warlock series.
I'm proud of you.
That box is checked.
There you go.
So moving on to day 3, Linnea Quigley.
Yes. Which
was a great category to pick. And I picked another 1999 movie, Colobus. I think that's how they pronounced it, Colobus. So this is one of those special appearances by.
Oh, so she's in it for 5 seconds.
She's literally in it for like 45 seconds.
Okay.
In the very beginning, she plays like they're living in this a house for like troubled people, and there's this artist who's the actress is Amber Weber, who was a WWE diva at one time. For any wrestling fans out there, she's the lead character. She plays Kira. And she's this artist with this troubled past. And again, it's pretty forgettable. It's kind of like a real world situation where they pick these 5 people, they lock them into this house, and they have their lives taped. So it's kind of like not really found footage, but it has a lot of the camera propped up in the house. So there's a lot of those scenes that you're watching through the view of the camera. And the whole house is booby trapped, and people start getting killed off.
Okay.
Again, it's another very, very late. It's a very, very 90s movie. There's a lot of Jerry Springer references sprinkled in there. If you get past the first 35 minutes, though, which is just, to me, it was just horrible setup, wasted on all the terrible, forgettable characters. Just kind of a waste of time. Things do pick up, and you get kind of used to the stupid humor that starts kind of presenting itself. Very absurd. It has some hardcore deaths with some great practical effects, though. And these are all really great gore effects, people being sawed in half and So there is a little bit of originality with like the whole myth of the story, which again is kind of forgettable. One thing is very obvious, and it's hilarious, is the score, and it's a total ripoff of the Suspiria theme.
Oh.
Like, da, da, da. Like it's exactly like it. As soon as the movie starts, I was like, holy shit, this movie's going to roll. Like, this is a straight up ripoff movie, but yeah, it's 1999. It just doesn't really pull it off. I did notice though on Letterboxd, a lot of people seem to enjoy it more than I did. I think I gave it 2.5 stars, but a lot of people were giving it like at least 3 or above.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's fun for its time, but
It's those kids who like those 90s horror movies. I mean,
I do.
You don't hate them as much as I do, but
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I usually enjoy them. And I mean, I do like, I don't really like 90s movies when they pull so many references from the time.
Right.
Which this one definitely does. And Warlock kind of felt like that too. Later in the 90s, they seem to get worse and worse when you get closer to the 2000s.
Yeah.
But like Night of the Scarecrow, I think that was 1995. Oh my God, so good. But yeah, Colobus, however you pronounce it. It's on Tubi and Shudder. I think it's worth a watch if you want that special appearance by Linnea Quigley.
I mean, if you're a completist, sure. Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I think mine fits into that. If you're a Linnea Quigley completist, then sure, watch this one. I watched Creepazoids from 1987. Directed by David DeCoteau, who is not my favorite because his movies aren't great. I appreciate what he tries to do in it. I salute him for making sure that every movie he does has shirtless men in it, but his movies aren't great. So this was on Tubi. It's about a group of post-apocalypse army deserters. They end up finding this abandoned building that seems like some kind of bunker, and they're like, cool, we're set. It has a rubber suit monster, has the obligatory shower scene with Linnea. Did you get that in your movie? Shower scene?
Oh, no. She was...
Because 45 seconds. So
45 seconds. Yeah, she's basically, it's cold outside. She's wearing a coat, and she's basically just saying, be careful.
Well, that's the opposite of what
yeah,
you
I know.
expect from
I was
Linnea.
like, this is not what I signed up for.
In a coat? What the hell? Yeah, the rubber suit monster is cute. You know, the shower scene, there's an equal amount of the frame dedicated to the naked guy in the shower, of course. So hats off, David, for that. No cock shots, though. Come on, buddy. It's still a full moon picture, so, you know, none of that. But not my favorite. So moving on to Italy.
Yes.
And I picked The Third Eye from 1966, and we have a whole episode about that, so you all should go watch that. I believe that's Lance's pick for a later category.
It is, yeah. I used it
1960s?
for the 60s pick.
Okay.
So I won't have a lot to talk about when we get to that day.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Listen to the episode.
So yeah, go to our episode. We have a whole episode dedicated just to that movie, Third Eye, 1966.
So my Italian pick actually ties into Third Eye too, because I watched The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave from 1971 because I thought it'd be a good double feature for The Third Eye. It also stars Erica Blanc, who's in The Third Eye.
Right.
It would work as a double feature, like I mentioned in the episode. Listen to the episode to figure out reasons why. But yeah, I've already talked about it. I mean, listen to The Third Eye. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
Listen to The Third Eye episode. It's a good time, though. The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. Okay, so we're going to jump ahead to Body Horror, Day 5. A lot to choose from.
Yes.
I picked one that I had always wanted to watch, The Incredible Melting Man from 1977.
Fun.
Yes, I had never seen this. I had it in my watch list on Prime for a long time, and I loved it. This was probably one of my favorite movies from my Horror Gives Back list, written and directed by William Sachs. So these astronauts go through Saturn's rings, and when they return to Earth, all but one survive, but he's slowly melting. And I mean, like, he's literally melting. And he needs human cells to survive, so he begins killing and eating people because he thinks that'll help cure his ailment. A lot of classic, scary horror tropes are in here. The awesome gooey effects. It's Rick Baker early in his career handling this. There's this great scene of a severed head floating down the creek and like people just kind of looking at it and reacting to it. And it made me think like, man, I would love like just a whole movie of just a head like slowly floating down like a river or creek. And the whole movie is just people's reaction to this head. And then like, you tell these side stories from them, but I started getting lost in that visual. But yeah, it's a late 70s movie, but it looks and it feels very 80s, even with its humor. It opens up with this, I'd say it opened up the humorous horror that would kind of rule the 80s, like, Night of the Creeps, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Return of the Living Dead. Like I got that inspiration from The Incredible Melting Man. I did look at some reviews and I understand some of the comments about nothing really happening because it is just like you're following these campy characters, this guy who's slowly melting and just losing existence. Mm-hmm. But to me, there's never a dull moment because the actors are so committed to their campiness. And I just laughed at everything they said and it just made me smile. It almost came across like an R-rated Brady Bunch episode. Like it's just this goofy, it's like the Brady Bunch kids, like, I don't know, like rated R, gory. Yeah. I mean, I just kept thinking of the Brady Bunch, like not visually, but more so how the camp and the characters were.
Sure, Jan.
Yeah. Yeah. This one, if you haven't seen it, I totally recommend it. I probably looked for a Blu-ray I'm sure there's a release out there. I haven't even looked. I watched it on Prime. The Incredible Melting Man, 1977. Nice.
So my body horror pick was Panic from 1982, directed by Tonino Ricci. Watched this on Tubi. I think, I'm pretty sure there's a Blu-ray release because I recognize the cover from it, but I can't remember. I think it's probably Severin. So it starts right away with this unexplained experiment gone wrong. Then there's this missing scientist who's been extremely deformed by the experiment. Then David Warbeck shows up, and I always love David Warbeck. That was a big reason I picked it. And plus it's Italian. So I'm like, I'm going to like it on some level at the very least.
Right.
David Warbeck shows up, tries to track him down before the powers that be will basically nuke the town where the monster is running loose and killing people. So getting back to, Return of the Living Dead, kind of a similar ending scenario to that. There's one scene in the movie where there's like a bunch of people get killed in a theater. I guess like I think there's people who are like obsessed with movies that have scenes that take place in a movie theater, like The Blob and like other, Messiah of Evil and stuff like that. So
yeah, those are always fun popcorn.
Yeah. It's okay. I would say it's even for 1982, it's pretty lower tier Italian, so I wouldn't rush out to watch it. But I mean, if you like Italian horror, you'll appreciate a lot of the sort of goofiness and off-kilterness of it. The monster transformed scientist guy, you don't get too many good shots of him, at least until the end of it. This was early in the month, so I'm struggling a little bit, but I don't remember loving it. And my last note is lower tier Italian. So that means I probably gave it 2.5 if I was being nice that day. And then moving on to LGBTQ horror, I watched Jean Roland's The Living Dead Girl from 1982. I have this on a box set, like a Jean Roland vampire box set, but I forgot I had that. And so I just watched it on Tubi. So it's there too. It's about, there's this crypt under a home and these women are, there's a vampire who is resurrected by chemical waste. This is actually a lot easier to follow than a lot of Jean Roland movies, but it's still very slow. So,
it is.
His movies are not for everyone. They're an acquired taste. So I do recommend it. I don't necessarily think it's for everyone though.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that any of Roland's movies are all like that, I think. Yeah. I love all of them I've seen just because it is just atmosphere and tone and just you're sucked in.
What about you for LGBTQ?
I watched Vampires with the Y, Vampires from 1974.
Okay. This was my vampire pick.
Okay. So you can jump in if you want.
Yeah.
Directed by Jose Ramon Larraz. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a lot like Roland. I mean, it looks gorgeous. The cinematography is handled by Harry Waxman, who photographed The Wicker Man, The Day the Earth Caught Fire, The Nanny. So you're in for visually a great movie. I mean, and it really delivers. Total, British 70s foggy, stormy countryside. It all looks great. It starts off with a really cool cold open of two beautiful women making love in bed, and someone walks in and shoots them to death. And it just kind of plods along, following a couple who are camping by an old castle and seeing people casually coming and going from the castle. Mainly these two women who are bringing men that they're luring back to the castle. And one of the men that they bring back, kind of a poor man's Michael Caine.
Yeah, good call.
He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on because he knows there's something up with these women. Yeah, it's very slow paced. There are some tense scenes spread out leading up to, I think, it's a satisfying finale. But again, it's all about the atmosphere. Nothing exciting is really happening, but visually, I was just sold the whole time. A lot of dialogue going on within a castle, a lot of rainy, thunder crashing outside. I will say that I think the title gives away any mystery that the movie might have.
Yeah.
But it doesn't like ruin the movie by any means at all, or doesn't really spoil it. But yeah, if it wasn't called Vampires, you might be thinking that, it obviously involves vampires, but
yeah,
totally worth a watch. I think if you're looking for a fast paced, exciting, like vampire flick though,
oh no,
this is not it. This is not the one.
It's like when it gets to the end though, when they have like the finale, it gets really like animalistic when they go for it.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of that. I was really reminded of Fangs, that movie about the snake handler guy.
Oh, yeah.
Who just on repeat just keeps bringing people back to his farm and killing them and like pushing their car over like over and over again to the point where it's like comedic. So I might even pair this as a double feature for that, just to like test
that
someone's
works.
Patience.
Yeah, it is repetitive. I'll definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Then we go to New World Pictures. What'd you do?
New World Pictures. I picked Slugs, 1988.
Hell yeah, I love Slugs.
I had never seen it. Juan Piquer Simon, obviously Pieces, the director of Pieces, but yeah, great Spanish horror with fucking ridiculous dubbing, weird reactions and behavior from all characters involved. It took me a while to settle in with the odd tone because it didn't really know what it wanted to be. Like, is it a horror? Is it a comedy horror? Is it strictly a horror? I think the dubbing adds to the comedic element and the way the script, which I'm sure it's how it was written, and the dialogue. I don't know. To me, it took me a while to find my footing in this. I don't think it does incredibly well in either. Like, I don't think it's a true horror, and I don't think it's a very effective comedy horror because I think the tones just kind of fluctuate oddly. I don't know. Maybe it was the day I watched it.
No, I think you're right. Like, especially because it is, there could be something lost in translation when it comes to the humor. There's always that element. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't. It's by no means great. It's just one of those movies that I love because it's just so fucking stupid.
It is.
It's like slugs and they're...
Yeah. I mean, I don't need to tell you the plot of the story because the title is the plot. There's fucking slugs everywhere. You're not going to be disappointed. And like you said, scenes do go from like 1 to 10 in a matter of seconds, which I love. There's a scene where this dude is like, he's fucking his girlfriend and then he gets bit by a slug and he starts freaking out trying to climb out of the window and there's slugs everywhere. And I mean, the girl falls onto the floor and just the practical effects in this are the reason to watch it.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a Halloween movie too.
It is a Halloween party, or there's a Halloween party in it. Yes. Yeah. So it's, and the sound effects are great too, because they're so exaggerated. What you want, those squishy, gooey, just the slimy sound effects are so effective. It's really dumb, but I loved it. When I tweeted this, I tweeted the day I was going to watch this that, hey, this is my pick for New World Pictures, and Adam Hersey tweeted at me about he didn't spoil anything, but he said, "Oh, I'll never think of a head of a lettuce the same way." Right. So as soon as that scene came up, I was like, "Okay, something good's going to happen."
Yeah,
and something good does happen. But yeah, I do recommend it. I think the tone is odd, but like you said, it is just kind of to watch with a group of friends. I mean, you couldn't go wrong.
This has a Arrow Blu-ray release if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
Of course, I own it.
It is streaming on Tubi. That's where I watched it.
That's fine. Buy it, though. It's so good.
Yes.
So New World Pictures, I watched Return to Horror High, 1987, directed by Bill Froelich. I think everyone, if you were ever in a video store in your life, knows this cover. It's the skeleton cheerleader. This is one that I maybe I watched when I was a kid, but I don't remember it at all. But this is not related to the 1970s horror high movie. This is basically this meta horror comedy where it's pretending to be a sequel to something. It's a movie. They're shooting a movie within the movie kind of thing. So it goes back and forth between the scenes that they're actually shooting for the movie and then the movie that we're watching of them. But there's really no clear setup or like transition between those. So it can be a little off-putting and confusing. It's early meta comedy, so I'll give it props for that because I think everyone just cites Scream as being sort of foundational for that.
Right.
I'll give it props for that, but this movie is extremely fucking boring. Like I was struggling to get through this one. I don't care for it. I had a DVD of it. I put it on my pile to take to Half Price Books after watching this. It is also on YouTube. If anybody, it's one of those ones where I kind of felt like I had to watch because of the cover. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this and I should get this off my list.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I'm feeling about it. It's an iconic cover. I don't know if I've ever seen it. If I did, like you said, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But I probably should get it off my list, just like Warlock 3.
Yeah.
The Armageddon.
There you go. Yeah. New World Pictures, if you want some better options, tweet at the New World Pictures pod and they can probably offer you some suggestions.
Sure.
All right. Then moving on to Animals. This was one of my favorites of the month. And I made a lot of last minute changes. And this is why I never publish my list ahead of time because I'm always going to change it. And I don't want to be held accountable for my changes. So
right.
I don't finalize it until after the month is over. So this is a 1989 film directed by Peter Del Monte, and I might pronounce it incorrectly. Etoile. It's Etoile. And the whole reason I picked it is because it's got a swan on the poster. So I'm counting it. It stars Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, that's another reason to watch it.
Yeah, it's, and so she goes to Austria to audition for a ballet academy. It feels like it's got a little bit of a Suspiria vibe to it. So she goes to audition for the ballet academy. She ends up getting possessed by the spirit of a dead ballerina. This is more of a romantic drama, even though it's Italian, it's late 80s. There's really only one moment of true weirdness in this, and it's a doozy, but it's towards the end. I think the main problem with this is that the lead guy in it, who's kind of the romantic interest and is he's pursuing Jennifer Connelly's character, and he's trying to understand like why she's behaving differently after she's been possessed. He's really dull. So he doesn't really help the guy. I think that was just bad casting. Jennifer Connelly is great. She's perfect for movies like this. It's very moody. It's very atmospheric. It's going to be slow for a lot of folks, but if you can get down with that, like Jose Larraz or Jean Roland stuff, I'm not saying it's like that because it's much more of a coherent story than that. But I think people would enjoy this. Connelly plays a Swan Lake ballerina very well. And I think after seeing this and Black Swan, I feel like I've seen Swan Lake just because I know the music so well and like the, some of the choreography and all. I'm like, I've seen I've seen Swan Lake. Hell yeah. Oh my God. Etoile? I'm really not sure. 1989. This was on YouTube and I recommend it.
Nice.
What about you? Animals.
Devil Dog, the Hound of Hell. 1978. This was a made-for-TV horror film directed by Curtis Harrington, who did, Night Tide, The Killing Kind. Mm-hmm. It stars Richard Crenna. It's a lot of fun. This was, it wasn't one of my favorites, but first off the title, and if you look at the cover, you can't go wrong with having fun with this. It opens up with this ritual with Satanists, this group of Satanists surrounding a German Shepherd who's standing in a pentagram.
Good boy.
So it's just this awesome idea of Satanists breeding devil dogs, and they give them out to families, all over the country, all over the world, so Satan can then possess the families. Mm-hmm. Very cool idea. Crenna and his so the story is Richard Crenna. I forgot his character's name already, but he and his wife are coming home and they find their dog Skipper dead in the road. He was hit by a car. And the daughter, Bonnie, who's played by Kim Richards, who's the vanilla twist girl from Assault on Precinct 13.
Pew, pew.
She looks exactly the same. It's just, like a year later. She's completely sad. Her 10th birthday party's canceled because she's so distraught. And as she goes outside with her brother, one of the Satanists from the rituals before, he's posing as a farmer. So he pulls up in his little pickup with puppies just in the bed of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls up at just the right moment and he's like, oh, I got all these puppies. There's 10 puppies. I got to find good homes for them. And they end up taking one. They name him Lucky. And the kids and the mom, they start getting possessed slowly, doing rituals while Crenna is like, what the fuck is happening to my family? Let's get rid of this dog. Like the housekeeper thinks that something's wrong with this dog. So the housekeeper's killed. It's just, it's what you kind of want and expect from a movie like this.
Yeah.
And one night he's watching the news and a woman pops up and says that her husband, who's barricaded and like killing people, he's barricaded in the house. She's like, it's the neighbor's dog. The neighbor's dog made him do this. And Richard Crenna's like, it's the dogs. He ends up going to Ecuador after meeting with some like demon expert. And that's basically what this is. I mean, this is like The Exorcist, but without like an unseen demon taking possession. It's a big dog. And it has a great ending. I'm just going to say the ending because the last line's too good not to just, it's not really a spoiler, but it's the son, they're all kind of a happy family again. And the son asks, there were 10 pups in that litter. Where do you suppose the other 9 are? Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, very silly. Not very well made. You can see the boom mic in a couple of scenes. I did read a little about it after I watched it. And Curtis Harrington, the director, he didn't care for it at all. He didn't like what the producers were making him do, what they were requiring, which even included like dressing up the devil dog. Because the devil dog, when he's presented in his true form, it's a dog, but it has like devil horns and like this huge headdress on. And it looks, and obviously Curtis Harrington did not like the look of that, but the dog's eyes glow green. It's just it's poorly made, made for TV horror movie, but it's worth a watch.
Okay.
On Tubi.
Was this write-up that you read about? Was it in Amanda's book?
Was it? I think it is in Amanda's book. It is, yeah. Well, it is in, yeah.
She hosted a screening in October with Rocket Cinema Texas, and she screened Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. And then she started it, though, with the Karen Black segment from Trilogy of Terror. And it was so much fun because it was... Well, I was bummed because there weren't as many people as I was hoping there would be. So it was me and John, and then my friends, Emily and Neil. And then there was like this group of other people, and the people behind us had never seen Trilogy of Terror before. And one girl behind me was fucking freaking out about it. It was great. But that was super fun. It was great to have an intro by Amanda to that. So we're going to get her on the show soon because I talked to her again, and I was like, I promise we're going to do a TV movie sometime soon. 2023, we're going to get Amanda on here. So yeah,
so many from that book. Yeah, you're right. That devil dog is in there.
Okay.
Are You Alone in the House? Her book.
Sweet. Tom Savini.
Tom Savini. So I picked one of his earliest. Actually, as one of, I think it might have been his first feature. He did the makeup for Deranged in 1974.
Right.
It's a Canadian horror directed by Jeff Gillen and Alan Ormsby. Basically, it's just an Ed Gein inspired character named Ezra Cobb, played by Roberts Blossom, who's that creepy neighbor, Marley in Home Alone.
Yeah, they played this at 24-Hour Horror-thon this year.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I love this.
Oh, that's right. I did see people posting about that. Yeah, and Blossom does a great job as the creepy, kind of sad man who turns into a serial killer. It starts off with his mom dying, who he's been caring for 12 years. Not a spoiler, but her scene of her dying is really effective. He's feeding her like pea soup, this really gross soup, and she starts puking up blood while it's happening, while she's eating, and very gross. And he digs her up a few years later, brings her home, and her decomposed body just looks fucking sick. So like kudos to Savini and the makeup he did. He did do another Canadian horror that same year, Bob Clark's Death Dream or Dead of Night. Mm-hmm. So these were his first two features where he where he did the makeup for. So right out of the gate, he's kind of showing like what he does best. Deranged has this dark humor vibe. There is a narrator, which I think is completely unnecessary.
It's an odd choice for it, but it's also, I think it adds to the humor of it.
100%. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if I was wanting more of a horror as I was watching it.
Yeah.
Because it does add the humor. I thought it just affected the pacing too. And he looked like Jermaine Clement too from Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine for me. I thought it's definitely worth watching.
I love the scene where he finds out what an obituary is. And he's like, I'm going to look into that. I love that scene so much. Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's funny stuff. Like he says stuff like, "I apologize for calling you a hog, mama." I mean, there's good lines. Like it's written really well. It's acted, I think, perfectly. And again, the reason I watched it, Tom Savini, his effects and makeup are just really, really well done.
Yeah.
What was your Savini pick?
I did one that he starred in called Heartstopper from 1989. I had to download this one. It wasn't anywhere. So the first part of it goes back and forth between colonial Pittsburgh and modern Pittsburgh. In colonial times, this doctor is killed because they think that he's a vampire, but what he's really doing is just testing blood and trying to figure out cures for diseases. But, it's colonial times, so they're like, witchcraft, vampire. But apparently what they did to him when they killed him, like they drove a stake through his heart and like all the things that you're supposed to do to kill a vampire, even though he wasn't one, because they killed him that way, that actually did turn him into a vampire.
Interesting.
It's weird. So it's an odd story. It's written and directed by John Russo, who's, he's got a lot of connections to Tom Savini and George Romero and Night of the Living Dead, all that. He's obviously the weak link in this area because Tom Savini is great. George Romero's, a god. So it becomes really weird. A lot of it focuses on Tom Savini. He's a cop. He's trying to track down the killer because the vampire comes back to life in modern day Pittsburgh. But the killer is biting people, but he's got poisonous blood. There's a kid kill in this also.
Nice.
That's the first person he kills as a kid by accident. This movie, I'm sorry, I'm struggling. This movie was hard to follow. What's weird though is that it's being reported in the news and on TV, like there's a vampire killer. And it's like, everyone just accepts that there's a vampire. There's no like last resort. Okay, we have to accept that what we're fighting is a vampire. It's like pretty early on, everyone accepts like, oh, we're dealing with a vampire. But it's odd in that sense. What is fun though, is we get Michael J. Pollard as the vampire expert coming in. Like I said, the script is really messy. There's lots of things characters just know without explanation. There are some good gore effects, but not very many. This one's hard to track down, so I wouldn't go out of your way to track it down to watch it.
So he did the makeup too and the effects.
Yeah, he starred in it. There's an obligatory, just like, Linnea Quigley has an obligatory shower scene. Tom Savini usually has an obligatory show off my muscles scene. And there's definitely that in this movie. He's working out in his garage at least a couple times shirtless. You do you, Tom Savini.
Yeah, I anxiously await every year when it's his birthday, when he posts a picture of himself with his shirt off and a cake or something in his crotch. It's the best part of the year.
I think it actually is his birthday when we're recording. It's either today or it was yesterday.
Oh, it's
Tom Savini's birthday. So you can probably look it up right now and find your annual picture.
Fuck yeah.
All right. So next category is Fabio Frizzi. And we love Fabio so much. I think we have the same pick.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had this pick.
Scorpion with Two Tails from 1982, directed by Sergio Martino. I watched this one on Tubi. I assume you watched it there too?
Yes.
Okay. This is it's messy. This was originally not a film. This was an extended TV show, and they cut it down into a film. It has to do with an archaeologist discovering some, like, this tomb underneath. Sorry, it's been a while since I watched this one, and the script is a little convoluted. My main thing that I remember from this is that the first archaeologist who discovers this hidden cave with the tomb is John Saxon.
Hell yeah.
Right? But he dies very quickly in the movie, and his fucking wife gets over him so quickly. How fucking dare you? How dare you? That is John Saxon. You have some goddamn respect. That is unacceptable. But thankfully, he comes back later in the movie from flashback. But still, it took me a really long time to like get back into the movie because I was like, did she just get over her husband who is John fucking Saxon?
Well, I mean, the whole purpose is to her to figure out what happened to her husband. So basically she's trying to close and solve the mystery of who and why her husband was killed.
Yeah, but she like cuddles up with some other dudes
She does.
like pretty fucking quickly. And I'm sorry, like
she's terrible. I mean, she's a terrible person. Let's No, I agree. This movie has no idea what it is, and I'm sure it was butchered in editing. It's,
for sure, yeah.
It's more like a giallo murder mystery than like a horror movie or anything like that, or a crime thriller. I think the best aspects of this are the reason that we watched this is the score, the original score.
100%.
There's like this melody, and I looked it up. Like I wanted to know the title. It's called the Death's Melody, and it is used throughout the film. And whenever it comes on, like, this is why I'm watching. Like something bad's going to happen. You're supposed to focus in on what's occurring on the screen. It's such like an effective 2-minute melody that just, I loved it so much.
Yeah. It's worth watching for that and John Saxon. The rest of it, it's Sergio Martino. It is not anywhere near top of his game, Sergio Martino, but it's worth a watch.
Yeah, it does have the same cinematographer that Martino uses in like Torso, All the Colors in the Dark, Suspicious Death of a Minor, and that's Giancarlo Ferrando. So visually, it's also fun to look at too, not only just like sonically and the audio. My favorite part, I started settling in because you're right, it's all over the place, it's boring, but I was like, okay, I'm really liking how they're giving us no clues at all, or any clues that they present has nothing to do with anything. Like, and it's not done in an effective way where you appreciate it. It's just like, this is fucking annoying.
It is annoying.
It was kind of middle of the road for me. I'd probably watch it again.
Of course you would. But I mean, if the score is out there, then I'm sure you're probably going to grab that.
Yeah.
What'd you do for Mexico? Yeah.
So that was my Fabio Frizzi. So 11 Mexico. I did the Phantom of the Convent, or the Phantom of the Monastery from 1934. Picked up the Indicator series Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. We've had Abraham Castillo Flores on our show for Black Pit of Death.
Black Pit of Dr. M.
The Black Pit of Dr. M. Yeah, there's a great conversation on the bonus feature of the Indicator release, including a lot of other bonus features that's totally worth watching. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about it. It's an old 30s kind of, there's no like flair really in the camera work. It's basically a lot of monks kind of walking around. Due to the age of it, and the cleanup to the restoration, it's a lot of fun to watch. It's beautiful to watch. One of my favorite parts, though, is the opening credits. They're these old school opening credits, and it's just introducing you to the actual actors. So they're like, they're showing the actors as their character name. Uh-huh. And it's just them kind of like smiling at the camera. Like, it's you kind of fall in love right away with these characters, even before they start performing in their roles. Mm-hmm. Just fun to watch an old movie like this.
Yeah. Love this. Have the Indicator as well. Definitely recommend picking that one up. So my pick for Mexico was El Escapulario from 1968, or The Scapular, directed by Servando Gonzalez. I watched this on Tubi. So I was pretty far into the movie where I was questioning my choice, not because I didn't like it, but because I was like, is this a horror movie? Because I remember Abraham had brought it up, and I actually think this was part of his programming that he was doing in LA last month at the Academy Museum, the Mexico Maleficarum. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, no, he programmed it. This has to be a horror movie. And when it gets to the end, it really kicks in with the horror movie elements. For the most part, though, it's about a priest who goes to give last rites to a dying woman, and she tells the story of a scapular and her 2 sons. So it's 2 flashback stories, like one son, then the next, and how the scapular helped protect them in their lives or affected their lives. And then it comes back to present time, and then it just fog everywhere. Like, it turns into a horror movie towards the end. So in retrospect, yeah, it is a horror movie, but if you start watching it and you're like, this doesn't feel like a horror, this feels like a drama.
Mm-hmm.
I really did like it, but yeah, I was questioning it for a while, and I was like, I don't think this is a horror movie. But that's on Tubi. El Escapulario, 1968. Then getting into Witches, day 12. I watched The Witch with the Flying Head, 1982.
Oh, what a great title.
It's got a great fucking poster, too. It's Taiwanese, directed by Chang Ren-che. There is an absolutely terrible VHS rip of this on YouTube, and that's the only reason I don't recommend watching it. This feels like a movie Mondo Macabro will get a hold of someday and release it. Or maybe even Error 4444. I know they're focusing a lot on Asian cinema, so maybe they'll get it. But this is ripe for one of those labels to pick up and release. It's about a woman in the very beginning. She gets bit by a snake. Then she's given a quote-unquote cure by a man, which turns her into a monster, the witch with a flying head. So that sort of in the vein of Mystics in Bali, where the head detaches from the body and still got the spine attached, goes around like, killing people and sucking their blood and things like that.
Right.
So he offers her the cure if she will marry him, but she refuses. So she remains a monster. And so then her family has to try to help her to figure out, how can we get this curse undone from her? I can't speak to the movie too much because the quality was so terrible. So what I saw was really fun, but some of it's so dark you can barely see it. So again, when I'm sure we'll do another Blu-ray wish list episode down the road, this would probably go on my list just because I would love to see a cleaned up copy of this.
Right. Sweet.
Yeah. What about you, Witches?
Witches. I went with Herschel Gordon Lewis, Something Weird from 1967. It's written and produced by James F. Hurley, who went on to direct his own version of this script a year later in 1968 called The Psychic, which I want to seek out. It looks like it's terrible, but I mean, based on just like ratings and some reviews that I've read, it doesn't have a whole lot of views. Yeah. So maybe an interesting future episode.
Oh boy.
No, I don't think it'll pass the test, but
all right.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe he wasn't happy with Something Weird and wanted to do his own. Maybe he wanted to cash in. I don't know. But it's about an engineer who's electrocuted by a hanging power line, and he's badly scarred. The electricity seems to have turned him into a psychic with these ESP powers, even able to move objects. And a witch visits him and says she can make him handsome again if he promises to love only her, which he agrees to. And the whole time while this is happening, there's a killer going around town murdering women, and the police want to use this engineer's new powers to help solve cases. So they give him LSD to heighten his awareness, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
It enhances his perception. And then the scene when he takes the LSD, his fucking trip is so fucking awesome to watch. It's so stupid, but it's really fun. And during the trip, he figures out who the killer is and has a fun ending, a fun revealing ending. But yeah, every time I watch H.G. Lewis movies more and more, I love them. And I was completely in the mood for Something Weird. Like Martino's Scorpion with Two Tails, though, it's kind of confusing trying to pinpoint what it wants to be.
Yeah.
But it's H.G. Lewis movie through and through. So it's just like this experimental original movie.
Nice.
It's something very weird. But yeah, The Witch, the reason I watched it is really funny. The makeup is so like basic. Like she literally like turns green and has a nose with a wart on it. And she's like, just, you expect her to fly off on a broom. She's credited as the hag, the lady who plays the witch. But it's good. I think I watched it on Tubi, maybe on YouTube. I don't know, but I definitely recommend any H.G. Lewis movie.
Of course.
So Indonesia's the next day.
Uh-huh.
And you just mentioned Mystics in Bali. I've never seen it, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen, a lot of bits and pieces and stuff, but that was my first on the list. But I've also had Lady Terminator on my watch list for a long time. And I was like, I gotta fucking watch Lady Terminator.
All right.
Same director. This one's from 1989. It's definitely more like a sci-fi action. It does have horror elements, a lot of good gore, a lot of murdering going on. But within like 2.5 minutes, you have a woman and a man, and they're having sex, and she kills him by squeezing his dick off while they're fucking.
Yeah.
So blood spurting on his face, and this is basically, you know, what I pressed play for. Like I was like, I wanted something like this. That's kind of the plot. Like it's this eel that kind of goes up into women's vaginas and turns them into these Terminators, like these powerful people. But plot wise, yeah, it's about an anthropology student. She's studying the South Sea Queen, who was destroyed hundreds of years ago. And so the student goes to go like look for clues. She scubas to the bottom of the sea. The Sea Queen down there possesses her, turning her into Lady Terminator. So that means she comes out of the water and she basically starts like fucking and killing a bunch of people, shooting up women, men with Uzis, because she's looking for the South Sea Queen's antique necklace. Some of the shootout scenes are like super intense when she's a Lady Terminator. She's like walking through buildings, cooking open doors, and just like just massacre, just slaughtering these people with this assault rifle. It's brutal stuff. Gets pretty repetitive for sure, you know, with all the fucking guys to death and killing people. But it steals so much from the Terminator, which is obviously its charm, as well as the English dubs for these type of movies. So overall, it's a really fun time. It does have some original songs in it because the main character who actually owns the South Sea Queen's antique necklace, she's a pop star in the movie. So they spend like, you know, a couple of full like 4-minute segments of her just singing on stage. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. And good Indonesia.
This one's horror. Yeah, this one's a lot of fun with the crowd. I think Larry programmed this for Weird Wednesday a few years ago. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
What was your pick?
I did Blind Warrior from 1987, which kind of like yours tends to lean more on the action side, but it does have some horror elements. You know, it's got a few decapitation and some wizardry. Really boring overall, though. I kept myself busy watching, doing other stuff while I was watching it. This was on Tubi. There is a titular blind warrior in this, and basically, like, this village is running into some trouble with some, I don't want to call them local gang, but some other villains. And so they go to the blind warrior and they're like, help us. Yeah, I'm struggling. This was the beginning of the month. I don't remember. It's fine, I guess. Not top tier Indonesian by any means. Mystics in Bali is up there for sure.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
I have the Mondo DVD if you want to borrow it.
Oh, sweet. Because I think the YouTube version is it's very bad.
Yeah,
it's dark.
Okay, so moving on from Indonesia, 1960s. You did.
Mine's easy. Yeah, Third Eye, Mino Greeny,
right?
Young Franco Nero. Listen to the episode.
We got an episode on it. So my pick for 1960s was Lady in White from 1962. Not to be confused, obviously, because the category is 1960s, with the 1980s, I don't remember the year, Lady in White, that everyone thinks is scary, and I don't understand it.
I've never seen it. My brother Cody just watched that a couple months ago, and he's like, dude, you got to watch it. I have no idea how we never saw this as kids.
I just watched it like within the last year or so, and I was like, I don't get why everyone thinks this is scary.
Well, he didn't tell me it was scary. He just said it was interesting.
All right.
Good.
I don't know.
You didn't like it though? It's like
I didn't care for it. I just, it's about a kid who witnesses he basically gets locked in a closet and he witnesses a murder he doesn't technically witness a murder in real time. Like he sees a vision of the girl getting murdered, and so it's haunted by this ghost kind of thing. Whatever. Anyway, I like this one from 1962 a lot better, and I think you'll appreciate this one too because it's directed by Arnie Matson.
Oh shit, yeah!
And it's available to watch on Cave of Forgotten Films. It opens with the reading of a will, and there's lots of friends and family upset about who's getting what. One family member commits suicide, and then it seems like she comes back to haunt the rest of them to claim what she believes was rightfully hers. It's decent. It's a little bit long for what it is. It's an hour and 45. This could have been really great at like an hour 20, hour 25 maybe. Especially because there's this one side plot with a comedic character, Freddie, that doesn't fit with the rest of the film. Like if they just would have kept it a straight mood piece, with this mystery about this ghost haunting, it would have been really great. But I think it's still worth a watch, but just be prepared for this completely pointless comedic side plot. So that was 1960s. Then physical media. What did you watch?
So I watched a DVD that was gifted by you to me.
Oh, the Scarecrow one.
Yes, Kakashi.
I didn't watch it. I just gave it to you.
I know.
So I
don't think, I mean, you didn't miss anything.
Okay.
This is a 2001 Japanese horror. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird plot. Basically, it's like this village of scarecrows, and they're living as humans. So I kind of got a little bit of Season of the Witch vibes, you know, with like these this town kind of with like these robots and stuff. But in this, humans, real living people die, and their loved ones bring their bodies to this place, to this town, to be turned into a Kakashi, into a scarecrow. Okay. So they can still visit their loved ones after death, and they're alive. Yeah, I did a little reading, and it may have been a made-for-TV horror in Japan, but yeah, I mean, it just wasn't really worth spending time like researching this movie after I watched it. I love the way it's filmed. It's really visually, it's like I said, it does look like a made-for-TV movie. It kind of looked a little like Twin Peaks from, like from the 90s.
Yeah.
And the characters and their strange, unrealistic reactions and dialogue did give me kind of like a David Lynch vibe. So I was kind of into that aspect. I thought the story and the way the script kind of plotted along wasn't very interesting. The first half was fun to watch. I thought the setup and the whole mythology of this town and these Kakashis was interesting. The second half is completely boring, and the ending was terrible, like such a letdown. I'm like, oh, Erica, this is your fault, I said, and I very gently placed the DVD back onto my shelf.
Look,
no half price here.
You're not the one who paid $2 at half price books for this movie, because I was like, this is a Scarecrow movie. I'm going to buy this for Lance. You're fucking welcome.
Oh, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it.
No, everything you just said.
Well, like I said, the characters visually, it's fun. It felt almost like playing a Resident Evil game because, it's mainly
you're not selling it.
It's mainly just a girl who's looking for what happened to her brother, and she's like walking through cabins, and it's her like point of view. The camera works sometimes, and she's like picking up things, looking at journals.
Yeah,
you know, I was like yelling at her, like, look on the bookshelf over there, like turn that bookend there and see if a secret passage opens. And there is some secret passages in here now that I think about it. There is a child death in this.
Fuck.
It's a little girl, and she's killed after her father slaps her too hard.
Huh.
And obviously, being in this town, you know what happens.
Yeah.
But
all right, I need to borrow it now. Like, God.
Yeah, it's great. And I don't have that like timestamp. You have to watch the whole thing.
God, why?
It's just the way it goes. So yeah, thank you for the Kakashi DVD. It's now been watched.
Yeah, it's got to get watched again now.
Tell me about your physical media pick.
I watched Mr. Sardonicus, 1961, directed by William Castle. It's in one of the Indicator William Castle box sets. This is one that I've been wanting to watch forever because I know everyone who's seen it loves it. Super fun. It's even got the punishment pole for the audience at the end of the film, which, is just super fun. It's not interactive on the movie, obviously. You can't.
I mean, William Castle is a genius.
He is. So basically, it's about a doctor who's called away to a remote castle to help the husband of his former lover be cured of a face deformity. Otherwise, the wife, the doctor's former lover, is going to be tortured. Perfect for October. Anything William Castle is perfect for October. It's set in this remote castle. Mr. Sardonicus has his creepy face. It's super fun. Definitely recommend it. Those Indicator sets are fantastic. If you haven't dove into them yet, definitely recommend jumping in there.
Day 16, In Memoriam. My pick was Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll from 1960. And my pick was because composer Monty Norman passed away July 11, 2022 at age 94. He's, of course, famous for the Bond theme, Dr. No Bond theme. Mm-hmm. But Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, directed by the great Terence Fisher. Paul Massey plays Henry Jekyll. And, we all know the story about Jekyll and Hyde. In this one, his wife, Kitty, she's sick of her husband always being and working in his laboratory. So she becomes lovers with Christopher Lee, who's in here. His name's not Christopher Lee in here, but yeah, when Jekyll turns into Hyde, yeah, Jekyll's the doctor.
Yes.
I'm all turned around now. Yeah, when Jekyll turns into Hyde, it's really funny because when he turns into Hyde, he turns into the suave, clean-shaven. It's completely opposite.
Okay.
And when he's Jekyll, he's like this terribly fake eyebrows and big bushy beard, and he looks sloppy.
Okay.
So when he turns into Hyde, he's like, the women love him. People like gravitate towards him. To me, he looked a little like Shooter McGavin. Pow, 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 from Christopher Don. And Alfie Allen, the guy who played Reek in Game of Thrones. If you guys watch Game of Thrones.
Reek. Okay. Yeah.
Reek with the little weenie. No, it's really weird because, visually the characters of Jekyll and Hyde are kind of flipped. Seems backwards, but this was one of my favorites of the Horror Gives Back list, actually. It made me feel, first off, it made me miss TCM. I used to, have cable and subscribe to TCM.
Yeah.
Or not subscribe, was just included. And when I watched this, I don't think I watched it earlier than, what day are we on, 16?
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel like October was here, like Halloween was here. And it was my first Hammer horror of the season. It was one of my favorite viewing experiences. Oliver Reed is in it for a few minutes as a nightclub goer. He looks hot as hell. He's young. He picks a fight when Hyde's there. And so Hyde and Christopher Lee, who's sleeping with Hyde's wife, Jekyll's wife, they both kind of buddy up when he's Hyde. They become really good, just fucking around, drinking, partying. And when Oliver Reed pops up and starts picking a fight with Hyde, him and Christopher Lee, they just beat his ass. They beat Oliver Reed down.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's fun to watch. It's a very talky melodrama. I did look at some reviews and stuff, and I could see why some consider it boring, since there isn't a whole lot of horror there, but it's this cast and the Terrence Fisher direction, and obviously the Monty Norman score. There's great horns that are orchestrated by him. There's a scene when Jekyll first shoots himself up with this formula and he turns into Hyde. And it's just amazing to watch. It's I kind of wanted to just rewind it and rewatch it because it's accentuated by this score. It turns from as he's, pulling out the formula, it's very intriguing and kind of this interesting, whimsical, music. And then it just gets super dreadful, this dread-filled tone and music that, when he starts transforming it, that's the horror elements is the music, which really works.
Nice.
It's kind of unbelievable to me that Monty Norman didn't do any other horror scores that I could find, especially for Hammer, since this was a Hammer film and it fits so well. But then again, we have James Bernard who handles the best of them. I do have to point out it does end in true Hammer fashion.
Fire.
There
you go.
There's also a great dummy fall in there.
There you go, Matt.
Yeah, so that's for Matt. And if somebody looks at the poster, it doesn't make any sense at all because it's called The Two Faces of Hyde, right? Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, sorry. And the poster is both him as Hyde. It's both him clean shaven and, it's not Jekyll and Hyde. It's both Hyde. So it doesn't make sense.
That's funny.
But I do recommend this 100%. I think in my review, I called it Hammer's the Nutty Professor. Because if you remember in The Nutty Professor, especially the Eddie Murphy version,
I've not seen it.
The Jerry Lee Lewis, but when he drinks this potion, he turns into this sexy suave, versus his real life. And that's kind of the backwards action here in The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, where he becomes kind of cooler. But yeah, this is on Tubi. I completely recommend this Hammer horror movie. It was really great.
Nice. So my in memoriam was for John Steiner. So he was in a film called The Ancines Woods from 1970, directed by Pedro Olea. This was on Cave of Forgotten Films a while ago, and I've had it in my watch list since then, but the site got taken down because inevitably some dickhead goes and fucks with the site, and so then he has to re-upload everything, and he hasn't re-added this one to the site yet. So I had to download this one from somewhere else, legal adjacent. But it's about a peddler who travels between a few towns selling trinkets, and he kills some people when he has these fits, and some people suspect that the killings are being done by a werewolf. So I had really high hopes for this one. Unfortunately, it's pretty slow, but doesn't really build too much of an atmosphere to make up for that. At the end of the film, it said it was based on a true story of a man who killed 11 people. So I'm sure it's a very liberal adaptation of that, if it is true. Unfortunately, it's just not really very scary or creepy. It's just kind of forgettable and disappointing. John Steiner's not the peddler in this. He's a traveling Bible salesman who meets up with the peddler and actually escapes from him when he's having a fit, and he doesn't end up getting killed, but John Steiner joins up with the crowd that's kind of going after them. So there is this like mob moment where they're all going after the peddler when they figure out he's the one who's killing everybody. I'm kind of spoiling it because, it's not, it turns out he does actually have, I don't think they name it as epilepsy, but they call it fits. And he does kind of go into this weird trance and he does kill people. And so he's not a werewolf, but I think there's this sort of legend born around that. And so I'm spoiling it because
Did he bite people or
no,
when he killed them?
He ravages them a little bit. So it seems like they're being torn apart by an animal because he's in such a fit kind of thing. So I'm spoiling it because people shouldn't watch it because it's not great. So I'll do that when I'm not concerned about people watching a film.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah. So then moving on to birth year. My birth year is 1979. I'm an old fart, not as old as Lance though.
Just by a couple months, because we did think we had the same birth year until like this fucking charity, this list was put together.
Yeah, I thought we were both 79. You thought we were both 78. And I was like, oh.
I'm late 78, October 78.
Yeah.
You're March
79.
Yeah. So I am that much older than Erica. So wise. No, not really.
So I chose Nightwing from 1979, directed by Arthur Hiller, who's more known for comedies and dramas like Love Story from 1970. This is an odd director. I thought this was an odd director choice for this film. I watched it on YouTube, but as I watched it, it made a little bit more sense because it was more about tribal politics and more of a drama. So it stars David Warner, also R.I.P. So this could have been my in memoriam pick as well. Mm-hmm. He's hunting down a colony of vampire bats that carry the bubonic plague, and they have ended up. The bats have settled in an rock formation on an indigenous reservation. It's a lot of that, and most of it is about like the tribal politics and like one group of the council and the sheriff battling each other over like selling land and development and stuff like that. That being said, though, there is a couple of really good scenes of bat attacks, and there are tons of fake bats in this. I think this is the record for the most fake bats in a movie that
so
I've seen.
You're in heaven for those.
Oh yeah,
scenes.
for those scenes, 100% in heaven for that. And the fake bats were made by Carlo Rambaldi.
Yes, the best of the best.
Yeah. It's got a Henry Mancini score. So on paper, this looks fucking great. It's got Carlo Rambaldi. It's got Henry Mancini. It's a David Warner hunting down vampire bats. Like, come on.
Yeah, filled with the bubonic plague. I mean, that sounds badass.
It does. But like I said, most of the movie is tribal politics and drama. And like the sheriff trying to find his girlfriend who got lost on a camping trip. And it's very okay. I will leave it at that. I think it's worth a watch for the stuff that it does have that's really great, but just be prepared for it not to be a full horror movie. So,
okay.
What about you, birth year?
Birth year, so I'm 1978. I'm very old, everybody.
Yes.
I like you quickly agreed, yes.
Yes. I'm old, I admit it.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys should listen to us because we are old. We know what we're fucking talking about.
There you go.
Right? I went with it's just called Long Weekend from 1978.
Okay.
It's an Australian horror, more of a psychological thriller, directed by Colin Eggleston. And it's about this married couple who are complete assholes. Like they hate each other so much, and they're amazing performances because you feel their annoyance and frustration towards one another. It's done really well. Like you can relate. Like if you've ever been not even in a bad relationship, but just in a bad situation where you hate somebody, you can relate to these characters and you have to commend these performances. they're on their way camping. And just to summarize their trip as they're getting to this camping trip, remember, they hate each other the whole time. On the way there, they run over a kangaroo. It's pretty distressing to watch. The man throws a cigarette butt out the window just randomly. And as the car drives off, it indicates a brush fire is starting. They get to a little lake area, or a little beach area where they're hanging out, and he's drinking beer and throwing bottles into the water. After all this, all these hints of humans and people fucking with nature, which is what those little scenes are doing. And then they're trying to figure out how to patch up their rocky relationship. You realize this just becomes a very atmospheric, kind of interesting man versus nature type of thing, because after that, they start seeing shapes in the water that they think are sharks. Ants start overtaking their food. All their food starts molding at this like accelerated rate. Wolverines are hissing throughout the night. Mosquitoes are fucking with them. The woman finds an egg. She takes it back to the camp. An eagle, that's obviously the eagle's egg, attacks the husband. So she throws the egg against the tree and just smashes it. So you kind of realize what the message is here.
Right.
Terrible things are, it's kind of a man versus nature type of message. But at the same time, it could just be terrible things happening to fucking terrible people. Because I became annoyed with how hateful they were. And I'm like, why don't you guys just leave? And like, don't. And the situation becomes believable why you realize they can't leave. Yeah. I mean, it's set up really well. It's done really well. And this thing has such a bleak ending that you applaud it. I mean, it fits perfectly with the tone that from the get-go. Like I said, like that brush fire scene really stands out to me. He's just smoking and she's like, can you put that fucking thing out? I hate it when you smoke in the car. He just casually tosses it out the window and the grass starts burning up. But it's never hinted at, what any damage that is done. But it just hints at the fact that Earth's destruction is man-made for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting kind of psychological thriller that still kind of sticks to my memory. So Long Weekend, totally remember. I think I watched that on YouTube. Okay, it was a good quality copy too. And now we're on day 18, based on a book. So I had to watch a Stephen King movie. I had to fit one in October. Okay. So fair. I picked Thinner.
Oh, shit.
Another 1990s horror, everybody. 1996. This is based on a short story under, it's Richard Bachman from his Bachman books. Directed by Tom Holland, who's just the sweetest man. I love his stuff.
Yeah.
But it's about like this overweight lawyer, for those who haven't seen it. I'm just going to quickly summarize the movie. He's getting a blowjob while driving, and he hits a gypsy with his car.
They call them gypsies in the movie.
They do call, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. They throw that word around like it's just normal. Like it's everybody.
It's 90s, and that's what they were calling them. So we're just going to leave it at that.
Yes. So he kills this gypsy with his car while he's getting a blowjob. It's ruled accidental. And after the ruling, after the court scenes and stuff, the gypsy's father, who everybody thinks it's like her husband because she was super old. He's like, I forgot how old he ends up being, like 140 or something, rubs the lawyer's cheek and says, everybody's kind of seen that Thinner, cursing him. And the fat guy starts losing a lot of weight really fast. At first, obviously, it's a positive thing, but then it becomes super alarming because he starts kind of literally dying and deteriorating. The judge and the sheriff, who were also involved in kind of covering up and ruling it all accidental, they were also cursed. The judge turns into like this lizard man with great effects, great makeup. And the sheriff gets all gross and kind of like leprous and like blistery and looks great. But the whole tone of this movie just falls completely flat. Again, it's another one that I couldn't figure out because it is so funny. Because the fat suit, the makeup, he looks like Jiminy Glick. Do you remember Jiminy Glick?
Oh my God,
Martin
does.
Short.
Yeah.
Hey, Jiminy Glick. And I kept seeing that. So I was like, is this a horror? It definitely is a horror because I know it's Stephen King and Tom Holland. Is it a comedy? And it's just stuck in the middle, and both fail at each attempt. This was probably my least favorite. I would probably double feature this with Warlock 3 for a suicidal double. Like just, I mean, it's again, I think some of the practical effects are done really well.
Yeah.
But it all boils down to, I think the lead is terrible. The guy has the thinner curse, Robert John Burke. He's just so emotionless and flat, and he tries to be funny, but it doesn't work for me personally. Nathan, I do have to point this out.
Nathan loves this movie.
Yeah, Nathan from I Hope You Suffer podcast quoted as saying the only good Stephen King movie. That is false, Nathan. I'm sorry. You know me. I love everything.
I'm in the middle on this. I don't think it's the only good Stephen King movie. I mean, come on, we have Carrie. Like, that's a masterpiece.
Carrie. I mean, I would. I mean, Misery, The Mist. I mean, there's a lot of Christine Dolores Claiborne. If you like this, I'm not going to say this to people. If you like this, then you like The Dark Tower. Like to me, I think it's just a terrible movie. I feel passionate about this one.
I used to love this movie as a kid, but
right? I think me watching this, because this was my first time I ever watched it. I'd seen so many of the clips, and I knew about it, and I'd read the Bachman story as a kid. But I think if I would have watched it as a kid, I would have been all about it.
Yeah,
especially in the 90s. What is this, 96? Like,
yeah, you know what this, and I think I rewatched it a few years ago, and I was just like, yeah. I'm not completely as vitriolic about it as you are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is carryover nostalgia or fondness or whatever from when I watched it earlier. Here's my pitch for it. It was a short story. I don't think this works as a full movie. This would have been fucking great as a segment in Creepshow.
100%. Yeah. Because this thing is, I mean, it's at least an hour and a half. And it, like I said, tonally, it doesn't work. Cut it down to 35 minutes.
Especially with the ending. I'm like, that's a perfect ending for a Creepshow segment.
Yeah, the ending's great. But yeah, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. Sorry. I think mine worked a little better. I did not do Stephen King. Mine was based on a novel by James Herbert from 1976 called The Survivor. The film is The Survivor 1981, directed by David Hemmings, who we love from Deep Red.
Nice.
It's an Australian film. It's about a pilot who is the sole survivor of a plane crash, but he can't remember the events itself for how the plane crash happened. So it starts in this really weird sort of surreal, like there's a lot of kind of time jumping, it feels like, in the beginning. The pilot in this, we see the takeoff, we see like all of that. Most of the movie after that, though, we're kind of with the pilot because we don't know why the plane crashed either. Jenny Agutter shows up as this sort of psychic medium, and she eventually approaches the pilot because she's been hearing the screams of the victim, and she tells the pilot they're trying to reach you to help find out what happened and bring justice so their souls can go to rest. This is very, very slow. This is going to put a lot of people off. I enjoyed it. I think this would double well with Soul Survivor.
Yeah, when we were talking about it, I was thinking about it.
Yeah, but I like Soul Survivor a lot more than I like The Survivor, 1981. I do think it's a nice little sort of Australian curio, directed by David Hemmings. It's got Jenny Agutter. It's got, it does have some kills in it that are pretty okay. And this sort of overwhelming atmosphere of, confusion, I think it works well because if we as the audience are kind of feeling the same way as the pilot in this, who's just like completely blacked out, like doesn't remember what happened, how the plane ended up crashing, why he's the only survivor, I think it works well in that sense. So I'd recommend. It wasn't my favorite of the month, but I would definitely recommend it. I watched this one on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the whole story and the setup. Good job on that.
Oh, thanks. I tried.
It also has Joseph Cotton in it as a priest.
Joseph Cotton is the priest in it. Yes. Damn it. I forgot that. Thank you.
He will be talked about in our next episode, Lady Frankenstein.
That's true. It's all connected. All right. Then on to one of our favorite categories, and that's Bleeding Skull. Day 19. I watched The Dark Side of Midnight, 1984, directed by Wes Olson. This is on YouTube. This has a write-up in their 80s book for those interested in where this came from. Lance, you'll appreciate this. It has its own theme song, The Dark Side of Midnight.
Yes.
The whole reason I watched this one is because on my child kill list. So there's a 6-year-old, he gets his throat slashed by the creeper in this. And the main thing in this film is it's about like this real estate scandal going on. I'm having a hard time remembering it, but I wrote something here, and apparently I was trying to write like a trailer to make it, or like a poster for it, like trying to make it sound interesting. So here's what I wrote. I wrote, no action is too mundane to film, no mustache too thick. See rotary phones get dialed over and over, confounding and unnecessary romance plots. That's what the movie's about, apparently, is mustaches and rotary phones. I don't remember the rest of this movie.
I mean, you had me at like real estate. Like, I'm completely sold.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, real estate conflicts going on. Like, come on, got to sell that. Oh, okay. So there's murders happening, and the dean of the college. There's. I think it's the mayor wants a college to be built in their town because it'll be a huge economic boost. But he's also invested money in that land, and so it would be good for him.
Right.
And so he's trying to get like these murders that are happening out of the newspaper because he doesn't want this scandal happening or something. I just remembered now. Okay. It's dumb. It's not good. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's
every man in this looks the same because they all have the same mustache. They're all dark haired with mustaches. So
respect.
I mean, yeah, it's happy Movember.
Good. It all ties in. You're right.
It all ties in. What about you for Bleeding Skull?
Okay, I picked Suffer Little Children.
Oh, yes.
Directed by Alan Briggs.
Yeah.
Never seen this. I picked up the DVD from Severin Intervision a while ago. So, quick summary. I'm just lifting it from Letterboxd, but a mute child arrives at a children's home and starts terrorizing the other children with her demonic powers. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say much about this because I think it deserves to be experienced on your own. It's a short 74 minutes. It's obviously it's bleeding. It was covered in Bleeding Skull's 80s trash horror odyssey book. Obviously very DIY, very low budget. I did watch. I'll talk a little bit about some of the interviews I watched on the bonus features of the DVD with the director Alan Briggs. He talked about how the kids and who became the actors. So he had a drama school. His wife had a drama class, and they all worked together. They decided, hey, let's make a movie. We have actors here, and we have everything's in place. So collectively, they wrote this script. They all decided between the kids, and there were some older actors, but most of the kids, I think, ranged from ages like 9 to adult's age, like mid 20s. They picked the cast. They harshly critiqued each other to determine the roles. Clearly a school project run by just determination, just fascination of completing a project like this. Yeah. The film was seized in real life by the UK police when the distributor who had the film, it wasn't Alan Briggs, but somebody had the film and was trying to sell it. They caught wind of it, and they saw these kids who were brutally murdered in this movie. And, they're basically banning it and, confiscating it, which caused the VHS to blow up in the early 80s. People wanted to get their hands on it and take a look at it. It was really nice, though, because he did say in the interview that if he had one ambition in life, it would be to set up an online presence to show kids how and inspire them to make a movie, present techniques and DIY methods to allow kids to get their friends together, make any movie that they have in mind or any idea for. All you need is a bunch of friends, a creative, wishful thinking. And he even was pointing out, now phones are capable to, film movies. Everything's out there to make your own movie. And we've talked about shot on video and DIY movies, and that's kind of the endearing effect on all of them and why I love them so much personally. But Suffer Little Children is like, it could be like the poster child of it.
It's next
just
level, yeah.
Because children literally made it. Like it's so much fun. It's inspiring.
It is.
So day 20, Monsters. So I watched The Revenge of Frankenstein.
Oh.
I wanted another Hammer horror.
Yeah.
I had never seen this one. Directed by Terence Fisher again, 1958. Obviously, Peter Cushing plays Baron Frankenstein, who's my favorite Dr. Frankenstein of all time. I think Hammer did it best. this is the first sequel in the Hammer collection, which it immediately takes place after the first Hammer Frankenstein movie, Curse of Frankenstein, which is
masterpiece.
Probably my favorite Hammer horror movie. And this one's fine. It could be my least favorite from the actual Hammer collection, Frankenstein collection.
Okay.
But that's not saying it's bad at all, because these Hammer movies are amazing. When you have Peter Cushing and Terrence Fisher together, look out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth the watch because of that. I think this one might be the truest to the Mary Shelley adaptation, though.
I disagree, because I got one later that I will one-up you on that.
Oh, well, no, I'm talking about from the Hammer horror collection.
Oh, okay.
Because all of them are kind of fantasy, but this one really focuses on the creature abuse and the mental state of the creature.
Got it. Okay.
Or the monster. And when I picked this too, I was like, all right, I want to see a creature. I want like a Christopher Lee, Curse of Frankenstein creature, or the Evil of Frankenstein, the hairy Frankenstein. Yeah. No, this is just a dude. Like it's probably the worst pick for monsters, but it still works.
I think I'll have a worse Frankenstein to talk about later, though.
Okay.
Like makeup wise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, trust me.
Well, yeah, there was not much makeup on this other than a few like fake sutures and stuff.
Okay.
Just some guy. But yeah, that was my monsters pick.
Okay.
It is worth the watch because it is Hammer horror, Peter Cushing, again.
So I watched Night Monster from 1942, directed by Ford Beebe?
BBB?
Beebe? I don't know. Beebe. John had this one downloaded, so we watched it. And it's about a group of doctors who are summoned to the house of a paraplegic man because he has some like special announcement for them. And the doctors start getting killed off one by one. You come to find out later that, and this isn't a spoiler because it comes up fairly early in the film, but all three doctors were involved with trying to save this man and help him regain his mobility, but they weren't able to. Bela Lugosi is in this as the butler, but there's also this other character who the paraplegic man has been working with, who is this mystic who is teaching him how to not mentally transport himself, but like he puts himself in a trance and then he's able to like formulate things out of existence, or into existence rather. And so that comes into play. And I think when we finished watching it, both John and I were like, Bela Lugosi should have been the mystic in this. Like the butler is basically just going around like, you come here, go to this room now. And that's it. And it's like, why isn't he the mystic and fucking Bela Lugosi?
Too expensive maybe for more lines?
Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, this is a really fun October watch. It's foggy as fuck. It's nice. So good in that sense. The ending reveal is fun. It's got like this cute little like skeleton that comes out of nowhere. And then like the end part's really I wouldn't call it gory, but like for its time a little bit. So yeah, Night Monster 1942. It's probably on YouTube. John just download stuff, doesn't even check for some reason. Then taking a big shift, we're going into 1980s. Mm-hmm. I watched Blackout from 1985, and I'm sure if anybody looks at my Letterboxd list or just looks this up on Letterboxd and sees the poster for this, you'll recognize it.
Yeah,
this movie is not that movie. It is. I know. I've had this on my watch list forever because of that poster. It's a gimp in a mask, and I'm just like, fuck yeah, bring this movie on. It's about a cop who thinks a man who has had facial reconstructive surgery is a murderer that he has been seeking. So like this man murdered his whole family, kids included. That's why I watched it. And then years later, he gets an anonymous newsletter or a newspaper clipping in the mail. And the guy looks almost exactly like the guy he's been looking for. So he goes and starts harassing this man the guy had facial reconstructive surgery because he was in a car accident. He has no memory of his former life or anything like that. So there's a good element of like, he doesn't know who he is and we don't either. Like neither of us are in on it. Mm-hmm. And so there's the bones of a really good concept there, but it turns out to be really, really boring. And like the masked killer, it's in the movie, but it's completely ham-fisted in there. Like it didn't need to be at all. But that killer is really the only thing that makes it, that gives it any semblance of being a horror film. because most of it is just like a thriller. Like, I think when you look at genres on Letterboxd, horror is the last one on there, and that's a
Right.
stretch. So yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to point that one out because it's a very deceptive poster. I'm sure other people have it on their watch list too, and just warning you that this movie is not that poster.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Okay, for my pick for 1980s, I picked something that was in my watch list for a while, and that's Deranged from 1987, directed by porn director Chuck Vincent. The reason it was added to my watch list was when we watched Bloodsucking Pharaohs in Pittsburgh. No size, come on. Which starred Veronica Hart, who was an
Right.
adult star, and
Yeah.
she was fantastic in Bloodsucking Pharaohs. She plays Joyce Peters in Deranged. She's a very pregnant woman, and a masked intruder breaks into her apartment and attacks her, and she kills him with a pair of scissors. She's set up in the beginning of the movie as already kind of being a bit crazy, hearing voices and stuff. But after like this experience, she completely loses it. The rest of the film from that point is filmed with just her by herself in her apartment where she's attacked, and she's kind of like losing her mind. I mean, other characters pop up within the apartment, but you know, it's just kind of her having these crazy visions and stuff. There are some really great long takes in this with just her, you know, playing crazy incredibly well. Like, I think she steals the show. She's in every scene. The camera's on her pretty much the entire time. It follows her the entire movie. Certainly overacting in all regards, but that's kind of needed for this role. But long takes, and I'm talking long takes, single takes that are probably, you know, close to like 8 minutes long.
Oh,
like
shit.
it's really well done. I think in my review, I called it Chuck Vincent's Rope because of the single long takes and the fact that she's mad, but she's alone. That's the difference. But she's also hiding this body that she killed of this intruder. Yeah, I mean, director Chuck Vincent does his best to confuse you as the viewer, and you're there with Veronica Hart's character, completely confused what's happening, makes it feel like you're losing your mind with her character Joyce, and it works. I mean, I wanted to just sit back and figure out how it all turns out, and it's a decent ending. Like it worked for the most part. Did you ever see Gaspar Noé's Climax?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got that feeling, and where it just kind of keeps spiraling and spiraling, and there's a lot of long takes in that movie too.
Right.
It was good stuff. Deranged, 1987. You would enjoy it more than Bloodsucking Pharaohs, I'm sure, in Pittsburgh.
All right.
Good stuff on YouTube. Okay, we are day 22. Dee Wallace.
Yay.
Yeah. I picked a movie from the 2000s.
Uh-oh.
2006. Abominable. And what do you think of when you hear the word abominable?
Snowman, of course.
Yes, this is a Yeti movie. This is a Bigfoot movie.
Okay. Those are two
Sasquatch.
different things.
Well, I think this is a Bigfoot movie. That's what I would call. I think they call it Sasquatch in here.
But an abominable snowman is not the same thing as a Bigfoot.
It isn't.
Snowbound, forest bound.
This is Forest Bound. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, okay, I get it. I get where you're going with it.
This is
I thought you were calling a Yeti a Sasquatch, and I'm like, we can't have that kind of slander on this podcast.
Right. No. Whoever decided to title this is wrong.
Okay, got it. Got it.
This is not an abominable snowman. The title's abominable, but this is a Bigfoot in the woods.
Got it. Okay.
It's written and directed by Ryan Schifrin, that's son of Lalo Schifrin. He's a composer who did I think most of the Dirty Harry movies.
Okay.
And Dee Wallace she's the first person on screen with her husband, and she's not in it very much. She does have she has a lot of talky parts, and they cut back to her, but doesn't star really Dee Wallace. But listen to the cast. This is what made me pick this movie.
Oh, mine did too. Trust me.
Obviously Dee Wallace.
Yeah.
Lance Henriksen.
Hell yeah.
Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
Paul Gleason.
Oh.
The star is Matt McCoy. And I remember him from two things. He was in Police Academy. He was one of the cops.
Which one?
I don't remember his name. But he has the face that and this might trigger the face. He played Lloyd Braun from Seinfeld. He's got that goofy, kind of close talker face. So I'm just going to show you a picture of him because you're going to recognize him right away.
Okay. I'm struggling right now.
Well, I didn't know his name until I watched this movie. So now I remember, oh, that's Matt McCoy. Okay. It's this guy.
Oh, okay.
He's got the big teeth. Hey, how you doing, guys?
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me pull him up from Police Academy just because it's fun.
I think he was one of like the stooges of like the two bad cops, maybe.
Yeah, I think he was.
That would make sense.
Yeah, but anyway, he's in it. He's fun to watch. Nathan on Twitter, Nathan again on I Hope You Suffer. We were very interactive this month. Always good times. This was the first movie they did on the I Hope You Suffer podcast. Abominable.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And he said it turned into them theorizing if it was a Lloyd Braun prequel story from Lloyd Braun from Seinfeld.
Okay.
Which could make sense. I mean, he's a goofy man. He's basically he's a man who's in a wheelchair. And he's in a wheelchair because he's a rock climber. He was a rock climber with his wife, who was also a rock climber. And they had a fall. She passed away. He became paralyzed. And his, he sees like a psychiatrist, and he recommends, like, I think it would really help if you go to the place where the event happened. So he goes to this cabin, this remote cabin where him and his wife used to stay. And basically, Bigfoot starts fucking with them. All right. It's like has nothing to do with his past really, other than like I think it's like Rear Window in the woods kind of, because he's wheelchair bound. He can't, he's completely immobile. There's a cabin next to him where these young girls that are having a bachelorette party show up. So he's kind of spying on them. He can see Bigfoot kind of picking them off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun to watch. I mean, I had fun with it for the most part. The Bigfoot I thought looked amazing. It's all prosthetics. It's real. It's makeup. It's a big suit. He has glowing eyes, huge teeth. It looks something like the Kyoto brothers might handle. There's this amazing scene where it's basically a face chomp where he opens his mouth so wide where he just bites a guy's face completely off.
Okay.
Good practical effects. The last 15 minutes are just pure chaos. At the end of the movie, I did respect it. Again, this is another bad, you're not going to agree with how this is worded, but it says no animals or Yeti were harmed in making this. So you have a Bigfoot, you have Yeti now, you have the title of the movie's Abominable. Right. They mention Sasquatch. It's all, it's just this mythical big ass creature.
It's not interchangeable, people. Well, they are two separate mythological creatures.
It is for Ryan Schifrin.
If you go squatching, you're not going to the fucking snow-capped mountains.
So I do have to point out Paul Gleason, he plays the sheriff, which is perfect for Paul Gleason. Mm-hmm. And he has a mug with "Don't mess with the bull" on it. Mm. So little callback there. But I did, after I watched this, I was like, I kind of feel like this is the kind of movie that Jeff Bezos, is that how you say his name? Bezos, who did Bliss and
Bezos.
Bezos.
Wait.
Bezos. Bezos.
Bliss?
What's
Joe
it?
Bezos, right?
Jeff Bezos, isn't it?
I think it's Joe Bezos.
Maybe you're right. Let me look this up. It's that, what's it called? VFW?
VFW. He also did Bliss. Joe Bezos. I know I'm right.
Yeah, I don't know why I have Jeff.
I don't either. Jeff. Okay. You thought Jeff Bezos. You thought Amazon.
I probably. Yeah. Maybe it corrected. But yeah, I feel like this is the kind of movie that Joe Bezos is trying so hard to make. And I don't. Is that a compliment? I don't know.
Because he doesn't deserve any compliments for these fucking movies.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of his movies either. And I did enjoy this more than the movies I have seen from him. But yeah, that's
VFW is only watchable because of the cast.
That's the only reason to watch it. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So like your pick, mine was 100% based on the cast. I also have a Police Academy person on my cast.
Oh, shit.
I know. Got a lot of, maybe D. Wallace just likes working with cast members.
That's how she chooses scripts.
Yeah. So I watched Skeletons from 1997. I don't know how this happened, but I managed to get 2 David Dakota movies on my list for Horror Gives Back this month. This year. I know. But you'll understand why. Listen to this fucking cast. Ron Silver, Christopher Plummer, Dee Wallace, James Coburn, Paul Bartel.
Yeah.
David Graff, who's Tackleberry in Police Academy. George Buck Flower is in this.
Wait, isn't he in Seinfeld too? He's in Seinfeld too.
I think he is at some point. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to consult Nick from Tennis.
George Buck Flower.
George Buck Flower is in this. Dennis Christopher from Fade to Black is in this. I mean,
damn. Carol
Baker is in this.
Wow.
So, okay, everyone understand why I watch this, right?
Yeah.
This movie fucking honks. So, Basically, the story is big city journalist Ron Silver and his wife Dee Wallace. They moved to small town. It's like either northern New York or something, but it's very small town. Because he has a heart attack, he needs to take it easy. He needs to quit smoking and quit drinking and like just be in a small town, really slow pace kind of lifestyle. So he shows up to town. Carol Baker comes to him and is like, "Hey, my son is about to go on trial or go to jail or prison or something like that because he's been charged with killing this other man." And it turns out the man that he killed was actually his lover. And so Ron Silver starts investigating and is like, this guy did not kill his own lover. Like there's some kind of conspiracy here. And the whole thing just sort of unravels. So I understand why David Dakota took on a directing project like this. It's very not in his canon, I think. But there is, of course, a moment where this truck, this huge like 18-wheeler is chasing Dee Wallace and the son. And the dudes who are driving the 18-wheeler get out and they both have their shirts off and they go like beat the car. I'm like, okay, now it's a David Dakota movie. I wish this movie was better. Everyone's great in it, but the movie itself is just like, it's extremely predictable. Like as soon as he starts investigating, you're like, okay, I know exactly where this movie is going. You know how it's going to end.
Right.
If you see a lot of movies, there are times when you can be like, okay, I know where this is going. But that's because you've seen a lot of movies. But if there are movies that are so obvious to anyone who's only seen a few movies,
right,
it's like, okay, you know, we could have done a little bit better here. We could have been a little bit more mysterious about which direction this was heading. So great cast, not a great movie. Dee Wallace is great in it, though. So there's that.
Always.
I mean, everyone, Paul Bartel, he has like 2 lines in the whole movie. He's the mayor. Christopher Plummer has the most. He's like the town preacher. And then James Coburn is like the local newspaper editor. So he tries to buddy up with Ron Silver kind of thing. So fucking amazing fucking cast in this movie. I would have to look at Dakota's like full filmography, but I'm sure this is the most stellar cast that he's ever worked with. And output's not so great.
It goes to waste.
Yep. All right, vampires. I already talked about my pick, which was Jose Larraz's 1974 Vampires.
Oh, right. So mine was Lips of Blood, Jean Rollin.
Nice.
Which I'd never seen. 1975. Watched this on Kino Cult. Yeah, like we already talked about too. It's just very fucking atmospheric, dreamy. This one starts off with a man at a party and he sees a photograph, or it's like an ad. It's like a poster with a landscape of some ruins in the background. And it triggers memories of him being there as a child and having been taken in by a young woman for a night. But like ever since his father died, he has no memory of his childhood really. And he tries to ask his mother for some help, but she's no help at all, almost seemingly hiding something. So he contacts the photographer of the poster, of the picture that he saw, to find out where the location was of the ruins. And she's also very secretive of it. So it's definitely this mysterious, like, what is going on here from the get-go. She tells him that she's being paid not to tell. So the whole movie is this character going on this quest down these strange memories that are, if they're, you know, you don't know if they're real or not, but he's had these visions of this place. So he goes back to this place. Obviously, vampires are there.
Right.
And this is Jean Rollin, so they're very sexy, sensual women vampires who are naked except for, you know, colorful cloths, transparent cloths like on top. Very beautiful to watch. There's twin vampires in it, so I'm in love.
There you go.
I mean, I'm going to try and get on a Jean Rollin kick and watch some more of these because Kino Cult has the setup right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything I've watched from him, I really love. Grapes of Death, Fascination. This one's right up there with them.
I love Grapes of Death. I know that's
my favorite that I've seen so far.
Fun.
Yeah, it's so good. Me again?
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. Alucarda.
Boom.
I talked about this also on, what did we just talk about?
Blood Spattered Bride.
Yeah, on Blood Spattered Bride. It's roughly adapted from the Le Fanu's Carmilla. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say other than it. I mean, the performances are amazing. Tina Romero is fantastic as Alucarda. The way she's introduced is kind of like a shadow, and then she slowly turns around in the background, and that's your introduction to this
Mm-hmm.
very powerful character. It feels like a horror cartoon to me. The costumes, the hunchback, the dubbing, the weird kind of simple dialogue, the landscape that looks almost like it's painted, like in animations, especially old school movies. The backgrounds are always like hand painted, kind of beautifully. And then the cartoon animation cells are played on top, very vibrant.
Yeah.
It almost looks like that when the characters are walking through these great shots of the exterior. The set designs, I mean, this would work with the Lips of Blood because it's so foggy and dreamy and John Rowland-y looking,
Mm-hmm.
dreamy synth. Yeah, it's a fucked up little satanic fairy tale.
Love it.
Well, I watched it on FlixFling,
Okay.
so it is out there and it's beautiful. But
I know, but you can't rely on streaming because all that
Exactly.
stuff always goes away, folks.
right,
If you don't own it in your hands physically, you don't have any guarantees.
and you have to pay for it for FlixFling. So
Oh, boo.
Yeah.
A la carte is worth it though. If you haven't seen it and you need to watch it, then yeah.
yeah, I know I didn't tell much of like the story and stuff other than it's Carmilla inspired, but
Then yeah, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah. All right, so Hail Satan for me. I watched The Devil's Gift, 1984, directed by Kenneth Burton. This was on YouTube. It's got a Ouija board opening, some creepy fucking dolls, including a cymbal playing monkey, and a really fucking great title card. Like, this title card is too good for this movie because it's downhill from there. So the premise of it is a man's girlfriend buys the cymbal playing monkey toy as a birthday gift for the man's son. So man's girlfriend buys the son birthday present. The cymbal playing monkey, though, is inhabited by this evil spirit that makes her try to kill the son. She doesn't succeed, unfortunately.
Is this why you had it on your list? Did you think there was a child kill?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
There is this really, so the whatever is possessing the cymbal playing monkey is whatever this evil spirit is or whatever, it manifests itself in some other form in a dream. So there's this really fucking awesome dream scene with this big black Bigfoot, not Yeti, creature in a dream. But other than that, this movie is completely dull. Like, it's basically just like, some shit starts moving around in the house because the fucking monkey's moving shit around. And then the girlfriend starts acting weird for a while. She tries to kill the kid a couple times, doesn't succeed. Awesome dream sequence. Husband figures out evil monkey, destroy monkey. It's dumb. Devil's Gift, 1984. Don't watch it. Moving on to Universal Horror.
Yeah.
I watched from the Universal box set. I have this. I have all of them. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, 1943. Talbot has escapes from his grave after grave robbers open it. He really wants to die. Like, he's just like, I don't want this curse anymore. So he seeks out Dr. Frankenstein for the secret of life and death, because up until now, he hasn't found a way to die. This stars Bela Lugosi as the monster. The verses part of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. You say meets, that means verses, essentially, to me. That's at the very end, as you would expect. It's okay. It's got some cute miniatures and, things like that in it. The end is water, not fire, but, the castle's right by a dam, so you kind of expected that was coming anyway. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with movies like this during October, no matter what. So
directed by Roy William Neill.
Roy William Neill, yeah.
Who does all of my favorite Sherlock Holmes, Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce, all those short movies. So good.
Yeah. What about you for Universal Horror?
This would work for sequel. I guess yours would have too. Revenge of the Creature from 1955.
Oh, okay.
Directed by Jack Arnold, who filmed the original Creature from the Black Lagoon. This was filmed in Florida. You can definitely tell, but it starts in the Amazon.
Okay.
Where the creature's captured. He is brought back to Florida, to the SeaWorld type of place for study and display. One thing that took me by surprise, because I didn't really scroll through the cast, was a very young 24-year-old Clint Eastwood pops up as one of the scientists in Florida.
Okay.
He has 3 lines and he's gone. Very similar kind of to how I felt about watching Long Weekend and how man kind of destroys, the earth. This is a good look at the American way or the American dream, where everybody's trying to just profit off of something. Any way to make a buck, no matter how like destructive or cruel it could be. In this case, it's a look at how a park for profit like SeaWorld may operate. Yeah, these animals might be cool and cute to look at. And I mean, who wouldn't want to see a real life gill man, right? If somebody captures a creature.
Right.
But chaining it to the bottom of this enclosed tank just so people can pay to view him for a few minutes. Obviously cruel to do to any type of sentient being, but they try to train the creature with shock prods and stuff for him to do tricks. Like they have like, the dolphins are all there that they show at this park doing jumping through hoops, but they want him to become the next attraction. So you feel for the creature, which is pretty cool to see in a Universal horror. It has this sappy love story between two of the scientists that are studying the creature. The creature finally does escape about an hour into it, though, and kills some of the park people, which is great to watch. It does a dickhead move and kills a dog, like just out of the blue. But, it's everybody against him at that point. I'm like, I get it. Okay, this guy's fucking trying to escape.
It would have been great if the dog like teamed up with Gilman. It was like his new buddy.
Just rides him on the back.
Yeah, just like walking right beside him, and just like that's his new pet. He's like us animals are
exactly
Gilman.
Let's kill the human race because they are fucking abusive. But yeah, the creature ends up taking the woman scientists, and kind of everybody goes after it. It's fine. I mean, it's fun. It's not nearly as good as the first one, which is probably obvious, like when you put these sequels on, but there was this great stun effect of the creature picking up this guy. I think it's one of the park people, and he just throws him. It's a dummy, and he throws him at a palm tree. So his body's all like flat against this palm tree.
Matt, does that count as a dummy drop? I don't know.
It doesn't. It's not a fall. It's a good throw, though.
All right.
I don't know. Matt is the expert. Let us know. But yeah, it makes me wish that like all animals in captivity, like we talked about with the dog teaming up with the creature, just escape. Fuck with the people like the creature does here. The ending is pretty underwhelming, but I guess it kind of sets up these were filmed and released. Creature from the Black Lagoon 54, Revenge of the Creature 55. Next up is The Creature Walks Among Us 1956.
That's going to be his pick next year, folks.
It probably will be. I'm not going to lie. Okay, so next up. Christopher Lee. Another movie I already talked about. Crypt of the Vampire, also known as Terror in the Crypt, 1964. It's another Carmilla story.
It was Lance's double feature pick.
This was my double feature pick from Blood Splattered Bride. Listen to it and figure out why.
There you go.
You just have to go back and check out these episodes.
Yes.
It's a great movie. It's a great adaptation. What about your Christopher Lee pick?
I picked one also from the Christopher Lee box set. Challenge the Devil from 1963, directed by Giuseppe Vigezzi. I chose poorly because this is not really like the box set. I had the assumption that they were all horror movies, and this one really isn't. There's a framing story about some stolen documents. This monk is telling a flashback story about him and 5 other beatniks in an old house where they meet Lee's character. Lee's character tells them about his dead wife, and they have to go find her dead body to give her a proper burial or something like that. So this is more along the lines of something like Bloodbath that we watch with like the whole beatniks and hey, what's good, Daddy-O? And
right.
Like, very 1960s, that sort of counterculture. And not a 1960s horror movie. Like it takes place in a castle. Christopher Lee looks all weird and sitting by a fire. And there's lots of dancing and singing.
Oh.
Oh my God. No, it's like lounge singing and like people like doing the 60s dance stuff, like in a club kind of thing. The best part about this movie and the real star of this, there's a googly-eyed spider in it that is fucking adorable. He shows up a few times and actually helps the 5 or 6 beatnik people like out of a jam at one point. Oh,
nice.
I know. I was like, as soon as the spider showed up, I perked up because I was literally falling asleep watching this movie. It's some weird oddity in Lee's career. I'm not mad that I watched it because you're so used to seeing, I think you go into Christopher Lee movies with a certain expectation of what you're going to see.
Right.
Like, I think we talked about this, oh my God, years ago now, when Born of Fire, that same director did a movie with Christopher Lee, and it was like a biopic, and I'm struggling to remember his exact, I think it's called like Jinnah or something like that. And, so, and I know he's like, Sauron and the Lord of the Rings movies and all of that stuff. But my Christopher Lee is Hammer horror Christopher Lee for the most part.
Yeah.
And so when you see something like this, especially considering it's a 1960s movie, it's in black and white, it's Italian, I'm like, okay, I know, and it's going to be in a castle. I know what I'm going to get.
Right.
And it's not that at all. And so I think that's a big part of the disappointment I had with it, is like my own expectations for it going into it.
Right. That makes sense.
So it's not bad. It's just not at all what I was expecting. So it could be enjoyable, not in October kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, all right. So the next up is slasher, which should always be a fun category.
It should.
And it was not for me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I watched Blood Rage from 1979, not to be confused with the fantastic, really good Blood Rage slasher from the 80s. Blood Rage 1979 is directed by Joseph Zito, who did The Prowler from 1981, a great slasher, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, no comment, and The Invasion USA, starring Chuck Norris, where everyone gets shot in the dick. Love that movie.
Yeah, so you think this should be enjoyable?
You would think so. It's more of, this is something that Vinegar Syndrome will probably put out. I mean, I'm going to leave it at that, because it's a sleazy New York set 70s movie. There's a young man who, he lives in a small town, and there's a sex worker. Her boyfriend is a cop. She lives in this house, and the young man, he goes to visit her. He doesn't really know what to expect, because apparently he's a virgin. So she starts coming on to him, and he gets offended, ends up killing her, covering up the murder, and then flees town. He goes to New York, and then he starts killing other sex workers. Most of the movie is the cop going around to different strip clubs, questioning people, trying to track this kid down. And if this went like 100% more into the sleaze and New York element, it could be fun, but it's just extremely boring. Yeah, so Blood Rage 1979. I thought it would be more of a slasher. It's not. It's just more of like more exploitation, I guess, but not even that, because it doesn't fully lean into that. There's some boobies and whatever, but
nice.
Whatever. What about you?
Yeah, my slasher was a dud too. I don't even know if there were boobies.
Uh-oh.
This is from 1999. It's called The Deadly Camp. It's a Hong Kong slasher. It's written and directed by Bowie Lau. But Anthony Wong was in the cast. So I was like, I want to check this out. It's Anthony Wong, The Untold Story. Everybody, it seems like a fun cast. I saw some of the reviews and people that watched it, and they're like, it looks like it could be a good time. But it really isn't at all. I mean, it's a short runtime, but it feels so much longer. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a found footage type film about a group of friends who go camping on this remote island. One of them has a camcorder, and there's this chainsaw, like knife wielding, the bandage, leprous looking like killer picking them off. It's like a Wrong Turn type of slasher where you kind of these backwoods family members and stuff, but all the characters, like the killers and the family with them, are just so obnoxious. They just don't work. There's no like development on any of the characters at all. They all kind of, I think there's 6 kids, and they're all, or there might be 5 kids, like 2 couples, and like the one kid with the camcorder, the artsy kid. Mm-hmm. It's just very basic, very recycled formula. Like you feel like the filmmakers are completely inspired by the horror genre and slashers, and they're trying to do it's very low budget. You feel like they're going to do their own type of slasher, but there's no gore in it. Most of the kills are off screen. Oh. There's no sleaze. There's not much sex. I mean, it's like, if you're going to do like a low budget slasher, just go hard, and really get stupid on the effects and the gore. There's none of that. And there's so many opportunities and scenes where it could have happened. Wong's character is pretty good. He just pops up. There's some humorous parts. He starts like trying to sell condoms to some of the kids and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, it seems to focus more on trying to like drive home these long-winded jokes that just never landed for me.
Okay.
It has a silly enough ending. It kind of sets up for a potential sequel that thankfully never happened that I know of. But there is a good dummy fall. I did point this out.
All right.
Best part of the movie. I wouldn't recommend it, but like I said, a lot of people seem to enjoy this a lot more than I did. So
Okay.
I watched it on YouTube. Folk horror. I went with V. That's how you say it, right? V?
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced V.
Yeah.
I went with V, 1967. This is a Russian horror fantasy. I've been wanting to watch this for a long time. A young priest is ordered to preside over the wake of a witch in the church of a remote village, which means spending 3 nights alone with a corpse, with only his faith to protect him. That's the summary I picked up and lifted straight from the site. The humor in this is odd. It actually kind of gave me Wizard of Oz vibes. So this is it mainly because of some of the sets and stuff and the way that it's kind of a musical in some situations, so that a lot of the characters start breaking out in song. They have some really great exterior shots, but when they film, of like the characters walking through the fields, but when they film them up close in the same environment, it's obviously a set. And the fake grass and the trees that are moving when they bump into them. So it feels very kind of stage performance every now and then. It's slow. I think you nailed it pretty quick on your review. I did look at your review where you have to like kind of sit through the whole setup, and then once you start spending the nights with the bodies, that you're rewarded for what is pretty much kind of boring to sit through. What's most impressive though is realizing that this thing was made in 1967. Mm-hmm. It looks amazing. Like it come out today. I mean, it's credit to the restorations and stuff, but it has like this, to me, this clear inspiration for films like Evil Dead and Hausu, and those were released 10, 15 years later.
Right. And
it's mainly like the humor, not only the humor and like some of the goofy antics of all the characters and stuff, the lead character in this, the monk, but the camera work and the score, it's very whimsical. The camera work does these crazy spin effects and stuff, and just kind of goes all around the room. And I'm trying to figure out how they did that in 1967, but it did remind me of like Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. A lot of the scenes did. Yeah, in my review, I called it Al Pasari's Evil Dead.
I saw that.
Because the characters and the dialogue is kind of it's pointless in a lot of moments throughout the movie, and there's boring elements, no argument there. But you do get rewarded when it goes weird and hard, and you're like, it's not well done, but you could see the passion and like everything behind it. So I mean, I think most people have already seen this, but I'd never seen V. So
speaking of Sam Raimi, so John and I went to Dismember the Alamo, which is Alamo Drafthouse's AGFA /ish Terror Tuesday marathon that they do. Usually in the past, they've done 5 movies. 2020, they didn't do any. Last year, they did 2 movies. Lance and I talked about that. Weren't happy. This year was 4 movies. And the last one was Sam Raimi's personal print of Evil Dead. And it looks fucking amazing. It was great.
Awesome.
That's not my pick, though, because that's not folk horror. My pick, I got out of the folk horror box set. I'm sure that means it's also on Tubi, because most of those movies are. Leptirica from 1973. I am not going to try to pronounce the director's name. Yugoslavian film. So something is killing the local millers, and the locals think that it is the long dead vampire Sarav. They get this one guy to come and be the new miller who's leaving town because the father of this young girl that he's in love with won't let them get married. So it feels very, they just got some local people and had a script and like gave them lines to do. Not saying that's a bad thing. They all feel very like authentic. Like they don't know, nobody in this feels like actors at all. Priest character in this looks like a Yugoslav skinny, young Rip Torn. But it's interesting. There's some good gore in this, even though it's pretty minimal. I think it fits well where it does in the box set if you're watching them all in order. Mm-hmm. Because if you started with something like this, you'd be like, what the fuck? but I think it's not too far out there. So it's a good, like, here, let's take it up a few notches for you to understand like folk horror. It's a familiar tale because it's a different take on a vampire story. So at least there's that. And it's short. It's like 60 plus minutes.
Nice.
So it's an easy watch in that sense. So I did like it and definitely recommend it. And really the whole folk horror box set. I haven't found a stinker in there yet.
Yeah, I do want to watch this one from that set.
Next category is Freddie Francis. And we have another same pick, I believe.
Legend of the Werewolf?
Legend of the Werewolf,
Yeah.
1975.
Peter Cushing.
Oh my God. He
narrates, stars. Yeah.
He's having so much fun in this.
It's great. So a woman dies in childbirth and wolves kill the husband, but the newborn is saved and he lives with the wolves. This wolf boy, he's shot and captured by a traveling circus and he becomes the most popular attraction, but he ends up kind of turning just into a normal man, in time, and he stays with the circus. He kind of helps out with the wolves, the real wolves like that are caged up. And on full moons, though, he does turn into a werewolf and he kills. And he runs off to Paris, falls in love with this prostitute, and he begins killing the men that are frequenting this brothel. And Cushing plays the coroner who takes an interest in all these dead bodies that are showing up. He does his best work. When I was watching this too, there's a scene where he's the coroner and he's dissecting and looking over the bites in the body. And he's like, this was no man. Like, this is a wolf. This is an animal. And he goes and he just like casually, very realistically just starts washing his hands. And I thought to myself, I've probably seen Peter Cushing wash his hands like in
so many times,
35 movies at least.
Yeah.
Because every Frankenstein, every Hammer movie he's in, he's like washing his hands, getting ready to do something. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite scenes. I'm not gonna lie.
I love it when he like holds up a body part and he's just like, oh,
Yeah.
look at this. And he's like very casual about it. Everyone's like, oh my God.
Yeah. So he becomes kind of not just like the coroner, but he becomes completely the detective in this movie. And he's trying to figure out and solve who's doing these murders, who's killing these people. And if it's a werewolf, he would rather study it than capture it or than kill it. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it
I had
overall.
so much fun. This was the werewolf makeup to me looks nearly identical to Oliver Reed and Curse of the Werewolf.
Yeah, exactly. He had really cool contacts in this too.
This was fun because we were carving pumpkins while we were watching this and like had like the orange and purple lights on. And I was like, this is all perfect. I'm watching the Peter Cushing fucking werewolf movie, directed by Freddie Francis. I'm carving a pumpkin. This is like what October is about. So
yeah.
It's good stuff.
The camera point of view as the wolf is really great because it's just this red view. It's just this red lens. And I always love the point of view, like angle from, a slasher type movie. But when it's a werewolf and you can see that he's seeing blood and seeing red, I'm like, it's so much fun.
Showing the bloody teeth and all that. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
The next category was Haunted House.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about multiple movies in one category. So I'm going to do it. So
here we go. We almost got through it.
Nope, not going to do it. I got to do it at least one. And we had plenty of samesies, so it's fine.
Yeah.
That's my excuse. So 2 movies. The first is Seven Footprints to Satan, 1929. This is directed by Benjamin Christensen, who also did Haxan, which I think most people know him for. So this is more of a hell house than a haunted house. And this is why I'm talking about 2 movies, because both of them are neither quite what you would expect out of an October haunted house movie. But I think it's still worth a watch. It's short. It's like less than 75 minutes. Basically, this guy and his girlfriend get kidnapped and end up in a house that is run by the devil. And they're trying to escape before they get punished. And there's all these weird rooms and different characters that they interact with. I wouldn't read too much about it because it could get spoilery for you. Because I found it on YouTube like randomly, and I was like, oh, same dude as Haxan. And I just added it to my YouTube watch list for October. Didn't read anything about it, and I watched it. And I was like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. So in that way, like it doesn't. If you're looking for a haunted house movie, I wouldn't recommend it for that. But it's still fun and good in that sense.
Nice.
And then the other movie I watched was a short film called The Haunted House, 1921, directed by Buster Keaton and Edward Klein.
Oh, cool.
23 minutes short. And it's about a bank teller who ends up at a house after a holdup where the criminals, they've set up pranks in this house to make people think that the house is haunted.
That yeah, it reminds me, or just that whole premise is like hillbillies in a haunted house. It's a lot like that.
Yeah, so they've got like the stairs rigged, so like if you walk up, they go down. They've got people in ghost sheets and things like that, and it's Buster Keaton, so it's super fun. And it was funny because like I had just watched that, and then later that month had Dismember the Alamo, and you watch Evil Dead, and you think like, God, there's so much like influence, not just in like a lot of Hong Kong action movies and things like that with Buster Keaton, but the more you watch of him, the more you see him in other movies. And so while this isn't a horror movie, it's called The Haunted House. So I counted it. So there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It works.
So there's my 2. What about you for Haunted House?
So mine wasn't really, it's called The Devil's Lover from 1972. Mm-hmm. And it's not really a haunted house movie like deliberately, but it's about a castle. These friends go to this castle that is said and rumored to have belonged to the devil at one point. So the reason I watch this is it stars Rosalba Neary.
Okay, there it is.
She's fantastic. Written and directed by Paolo Lombardo. Yeah, like I said, it's 3 friends who take a road trip to visit an old castle that's rumored to belong to the devil. Rosalba Neary's character, her name's Helga. She's very spontaneous. She's intrigued by the castle. And she asks the caretaker, who kind of sneaks up on these girls as they're kind of snooping around, if they can stay the night. And he's like, yeah, sure. You guys, you're Rosalba Neary. Fuck yeah. She finds this portrait of herself painted in the halls. And in the portrait, she's burning in flames. There's flames all around her. So she hears this evil laughter and she's like looking around and, she's kind of freaked out, but her character, again, is very like intrigued. And you get the sense that she knows she has some sort of connection to this castle. Mm-hmm. And so she faints and then she wakes up in a field and it's centuries earlier. It's like obviously the intention is to make you think of maybe it's a hallucination or a dream, but it's her in like a past life. She's the same name, Helga, and she's getting ready to marry a man named Hans. But this hooded stranger shows up, and there are hints of like vampirism going on. Okay. Right. So there's a side plot of a woman that's jealous that Helga's marrying Hans. So she hires a witch to kill Helga. But the hooded stranger, who's maybe the devil, maybe a vampire, is watching out for Helga. So he starts doing all these evil deeds to kind of protect her. So it's like I said, it's not so much a haunted house movie other than like a castle that brings memories from past lives. It's kind of all over the place. It definitely has a DIY feel, which I loved because a lot of the performances feel like they're completely staged, kind of stiff. It definitely goes for that early Italian haunting, atmospheric, dreamy feel. The scenes that they film at night are all filmed during the day, so it doesn't quite work. Yeah. But still, like, I think the whole thing's very watchable, very endearing. It's pretty uneventful. You don't have a whole lot of stakes. Like, I wanted to know how it would end, but I could see people kind of bailing on it because the characters just really aren't that interesting. But it's under 80 minutes. It does get a little sleazy. There's, it's Rosalba Neary. She gets naked. It's fun to watch. Yeah. There's a great melody throughout the movie that the composer's name's Elvio Monti. Every time it popped up, I just smiled. Like, it's super catchy. But I would totally recommend this. I actually had a probably more fun than any normal person would. Okay. It's on YouTube with subtitles. All right. Okay, last one. Woo. This is viewer's choice. Yeah. We can pick whatever we want. Yes. Okay, day 31, viewer's choice. I did go see Halloween Ends, but I'm not going to talk about that.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk about The Devil's Wedding Night. Okay, we just talked about The Devil's Lover. Okay, let's do The Devil's Wedding Night from 1973, starring Rosalba Neary. Yes, there we go. Boom. Directed by Luigi Bazzella and co-directed by Joe D'Amato. Yeah. And Mark Damon. Damon plays twin brothers.
Wait, have I seen this? No, go ahead. Keep going. I'll look.
Mark Damon plays twin brothers, Carl and Franz Schiller. So this was one of my favorites. Story-wise, Carl is after this centuries old ring, which powerful men are said to have held. Men like Alexander the Great, Attila the Hun, Ivan the Terrible. And it's said that the possessor of the ring will have power over all mankind. But he can only have power if he's willing to renounce love. So Carl's tracked the ring's whereabouts to Transylvania, and he wants to obtain it to give it to the Karnstein Museum of Archaeology. He wants to make sure no man ever gets a hold of it. Mm-hmm. But Carl's twin brother, Franz, is kind of like a swinging gambler out for a good time, and he hears about the ring, and he realizes, holy shit, this thing's probably worth a ton of money. So he heads to Transylvania, specifically to Count Dracula, where the ring is said to be believed to be held. And he gets there before his brother does. But before he leaves, he takes this amulet that his brother mentioned would protect him from vampires, because they do say, like in the movie, quote, when Transylvania is mentioned, that's vampire country. So he has protection. And Rosalba Neri is the countess that's living in Castle Dracula. And when Franz shows up, she turns him into a vampire. He ended up leaving his special amulet at the inn that he was staying at before, so he wasn't protective. His brother Carl finally shows up afterwards, looking for his brother, and of course, still looking for the ring. And while this is all happening, it's the night of the Virgin Moon, which occurs every 50 years, where 5 virgins are summoned to be sacrificed. So all this comes to a head at the end, and I fucking loved this movie. It has some really great opening credits that are kind of reminiscent of like Italian spaghetti westerns, because they're cool graphics and animation. Yeah. And actually the score is from, I'm going to butcher his name, Vasily Kajukharov. He scored a ton of Italian westerns, including like the Sartana movies and some Django sequels. So when the opening credits started and his music kicked in, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be like a horror western. And I'm fucking going to fall in love because Rosalba Neri is going to pop up.
Yeah.
It does have the classic problem of too much time spent walking around a creepy castle.
Sure.
But as I was watching it, the castle kept popping up, and it was a certain angle from the outside of the castle. And I was like, I just fucking saw this castle in a movie. I know I did. So I took a screenshot of it. And I went back through my watch list, and I just kind of quickly went through some of the movies I watched. And it's the exact same. I think it's a stolen shot that Joe D'Amato probably took, but it's from Crypt of the Vampire, 1964. Oh, okay. Exact castle, exact angle. I think it's the exact shot. But yeah, like I said, a lot of fun with it. Great twist. That only having like twin characters, like the ending and the twist at the end, you can only do it with twin characters, and they do it really well.
Okay.
I was going to give it just 3.5 stars, but then even after the initial first twist, we were like, oh shit, that's badass. There's another fucking twist. And I'm like, this movie keeps throwing surprises your way. There is this one amazing scene where Rosalba Neri's in a coffin. She's completely naked, and blood's like dripping. You don't really see where the blood's dripping from, but it's just dripping all over her body. And she slowly, it's a scene of the coffin flat, and she slowly rises, kind of steamy, and she's covered in blood. And it's just like, this is what Horror Gives Back is about.
There you go.
So
Naked Rosalba Neri is what it's all about.
100%. I totally recommend this. The Devil's Wedding Night. I watched it on YouTube. It was an okay copy.
Okay.
What's your final pick?
My final pick is Terror of Frankenstein, 1977, directed by Calvin Floyd. This is a Swedish adaptation of Mary Shelley's novel, and what a lot of people think is probably the closest adaptation to it.
So this is what you're talking about.
Yeah. The monster is played by your boy, Per Oscarsson.
Fuck yeah.
And I watched this because William, the little brother of Victor Frankenstein, he gets smothered on screen by the monster. So yeah.
Does Per Oscarsson, he has good makeup and stuff?
No, this is what I was also talking about. I've got the worst Frankenstein makeup ever in this. He literally just has black lipstick and gray hair in this.
Oh.
There's no stitches, no anything. He just looks like a goth.
He's an aging Robert Smith.
He's just a goth with gray hair is all. And he doesn't have like the walk down or anything. He's just normal walking around killing people. So, in that sense, I'm sure there was some budgetary restrictions with this, but I appreciate that it was a lot closer to the book. I appreciate the on-screen child kill in this. Mm-hmm. Per Oscarson, I think he's still good as the monster, even though his makeup doesn't live up to his performance in it. So I think it's a good option for folks, if you've seen like every Frankenstein movie and you're looking for something different, there's a Swedish one out there that's decent.
Nice. Yeah.
Just don't expect a good looking monster as well.
Yeah. So Revenge of Frankenstein and Terror of Frankenstein have weak creatures, monsters.
Yeah. And that is it. That is all of our picks for Horror Gives Back 2022. 2022. Thank you again to everyone who donated. You guys are what makes us keep wanting to do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we'll have links to both of our lists in show notes, so you can refer to those if anything piqued your interest. If you're not already, you can follow this podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Unsung Horrors. And you can follow me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Instagram at Hex Massacre.
And I'm on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Instagram at El Shaibi.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you back in 2 weeks for Lady Frankenstein.
Yes.
More Rosalba Neri, of course.
Yes. Never enough.
Night, y'all.
Bye.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.